Hey, it's the Bennington Show with yet another nod to Star Trek. I'm Ron Bennington. There's Gail Bennington.
Yo.
And I am Ron Bennington. Luckily, we're getting some rain. I mean, we really needed this.
Yeah. It's just been just too sunny and cheerful.
Mm-hmm.
I just like weeks on end of gray, wet, sadness.
Well, you got to remember, it's March, so
Wait a
good
second.
times are coming. Good times are coming. I think Hassan Minaj is going to stop by in a few minutes, right?
Yes, he is.
And a little later, well, we'll get to a bunch of stuff later on in the show today, including JFK conspiracies. It looks like it was suicide.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He was depressed. He was depressed.
But what about that Zapruder film?
Did it really show anything? I mean, I thought I saw a hand going up. A hand. His own hand. I was watching the President of the United States just smacking NATO around to their face, saying that we spend 8 times more than they do. So I'm like, wow, I'm fucking crazy. But then afterwards they go, there is no dues at NATO. This is just like your own defense spending.
Right.
He gets really mad that they haven't spent more things. Mainly, I guess, because we, the United States, are the ones that make these missiles and whatever else we have. But it seems like that's a pretty good business to be in. If you're in the missile or Kevlar making business, it seems like it's pretty good these days.
It never goes out of style.
Well, we've moved it now into the suburbs where they now have tanks and things to blow up with, you know. I remember when a cop used to just show up to your house. Not anymore. There's 18 of them and they're busting through. I blame it on that TV show that came out in the late 70s, SWAT. Before that, everyone's like, oh, can you imagine in the future there was a SWAT team? And now everybody has one. That's how they get to you. It's like candy cigarettes. Like if you're a little kid and you're playing with your SWAT toys, you're like, oh man, we really should have this. Chris was giving me his conspiracy stuff on Sean Hannity. First of all, Chris wanted the iBang to run a big thing that Hannity is taking a couple days off due to this attack on him.
Yes.
And I'm like, everyone we know is taking a couple days off from Memorial Day.
But it just came out last night that he lost 7 sponsors, a few really big ones, because of his talk about the conspiracy of Seth Rich being killed.
That isn't why. It's because these sponsors are being attacked. These sponsors get attacked by private groups. The sponsors don't go, oh my God, I saw this story Hannity was running, so I'm pulling out. Sponsors never fucking do that. The sponsors, they're like the Matrix. They read numbers. They never look at human beings. So what is working, which worked against Bill O'Reilly and against Glenn Beck years ago, was private groups are attacking sponsorships. The sponsors go, I don't need this shit, and they pull out.
Right. Because, it's just about the money. They're not willing to wait that kind of stuff out either.
Well,
like
you mean Fox?
Yeah.
No company waits it out. No company waits it out. So you could always come up with the content that you think that it is, but it's just because special interest groups have figured out. And by the way, we went through this years ago when we used to battle out for free speech when it had stuff to do with O&A, IMIS. It was the same kind of stuff that went down. And we would, people that were fans of theirs or friends of theirs or were just fans of free speech would, go around making their case. Patrice went on Fox News, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, all these guys, whether they're in advertising or they're in corporate radio, they don't give a shit about anything but money. They don't ever care what the content is. Ever. Right. And this is just the newest way. So, terrestrial radio has been hit very hard over the years. And you're seeing the same thing in TV, where you're going to try to get people who, have no opinions.
Right.
It's very easy when you happen to disagree with the person's opinion. And you're like, good, fuck him, I'm glad he's out. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to happen to your people someday too, in the issues that you believe in.
Yeah, I would agree. It is difficult because everybody feels very divided. So, you're always ready to like count a victory for your team, but you're right. It's hard to step back and go, is this really good for everyone?
Is this bad for the long term of it, And what's so horrible about hearing people's opinions who are different than yours? Yeah. Very rarely have I ever heard an opinion that I disagree with that I thought, no, I have to do that.
And what was the incident? Like, what was the opinions that he was giving that set people off on?
A DNC staffer called Seth Rich, he got murdered, I think, back in July before the election. Mm-hmm. After he was shot twice in the back, cops said it was a robbery. Nothing was taken from him. Then a few weeks later, a WikiLeaks dump happened. Like when the WikiLeaks thing over the summer happened, where it was saying like internal emails from the DNC. They say he was talking with a journalist who worked for WikiLeaks, so he was the leak to WikiLeaks. So they're implying he was murdered over the WikiLeaks thing, and it wasn't a robbery.
Right. So then he was then reporting that as his opinion.
Yeah.
And then people, yeah.
Well, but he was reporting it on his radio show, right? So, but it's better to attack TV advertisers, and then
so that wasn't even a story he was covering.
I'm not sure. He might have put it on Fox, but he wasn't hammering it the way that he was hammering it on radio. Now, Chris he says he's going to take a few days vacation, and Chris puts that in quotes.
Yes.
But it is Memorial Day weekend, and it looks like Opie is taking a little vacation. Bennington is taking a little vacation. Sam and Jim are taking a little vacation. Everyone's taking a vacation. If you get a 3-day weekend, a lot of people try to get an extra day in there.
Suspicious, though.
Turn it into, no, not even slightly suspicious. And Chris has given what he says is the reason that these people are doing this, the content of this WikiLeaks thing. But the same people, they just got done this with O'Reilly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with the fucking content that they disagree with.
I might have been wrong there, but this is the same thing that happened with O'Reilly. So it looks, I think Sean Hannity's done. His days are numbered.
You're not even making sense by making that leap where you say, I might have made a mistake there. What your story that you're missing is, look how special interest groups can run people off the air now. That you don't have to have a tweet like Anthony Cumia's, which everybody fell behind, acting like that tweet was so awful. Now, if you go back to Anthony's case, right? The people who wanted him off the air were not listeners to his show, were not subscribers to SiriusXM. These are people who didn't know him, listened to him, were not a fan of him, but they disagreed with his political slant. Now, you can say to yourself, oh, I disagree with his political slant too. So what? That doesn't mean anything. What's to stop somebody who's now very popular, didn't say anything that you could suddenly hang this WikiLeaks type thing on, but you're just like, how do we get that popular other voice off the air?
Well, the shame is that corporations then kowtow to
Why
the
wouldn't
people.
they? They're the same as the other fucking people. The guys down the hall don't care what's on the air. They care how many subscribers we have here.
Right.
That's the thing. Do you have subscribers? That's all they need to know. I never heard from a suit in my career. Hey, I was listening to the show the other day. I thought you went too far. Never.
Right.
But they're like, hey, there's been some complaints, so you guys want to pull it back? That's what they do. There's no they don't like us down the hall. They don't dislike us. We fill in something for them that they need in the product. But it's no different than if you're running a dry cleaning business and you like, oh, we need coat hangers too. Don't forget that. It's not like they like or dislike the coat hangers. They're just part of the fucking product. So, Chris, you're flying your liberal flag like you're so fucking happy. You're finally shutting down WikiLeaks in your mind. But nothing is going to change. except for you're going to change the players, nothing else. Now, other people be like, oh, Hannity's made enough money, whatever. That's not really the point either. And you get in, look, I'll agree. It's a very gray situation. But most people in this country, or a lot of people in this country, disagree with the president. And that used to be seen as treasonous. You know what I mean? If you just sit around and bust balls on the president every day. And all those things can't be proven. So you have a lot of people now wanting to push back about that kind of fucking speech. And why wouldn't they? They could see how it works.
Yeah.
You know, you could see if, let's just take somebody who's fairly milquetoast, in her stuff, Rachel Maddow. She says plenty of shit that people disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was in this business, the thing that they used to go after was just shock jocks. Good. We get those shock jocks off the air. They're using the same fucking mentality. They're using the same attack form. They've just switched it over. And this has happened throughout my career for one reason or another. But there becomes that thing that Chris kind of played into that you do when you're in the business of, mark my words, he'll be out of here by July. Like you somehow one of those fucking ESPN guy who wants to take credit because you picked the Patriots. What did I tell you? I hate that, but you know, everybody is so proud of themselves like they're a genius if they pick the Patriots to win. I don't give a shit. I'm watching the game. I don't care what your fucking little fucking predictions are. Why am I putting up with your shit? You're not a genius for picking that team. And that's what we all do with everything now. What did I tell you? Trump is going to be... Who gives a shit? Is there any kind of fucking... Is there anything that we can do that's beyond surface? But if you look at Fox, right? Do you think that they are closer to the people on the air, or they're closer to the advertisers? Do you think they have more in common? The guys who go through sales in these businesses all the way up to the top office, right? They're the same guys.
Yes.
As the advertisers. And a lot of times, if they get fired from one, they get hired at the other. So they, you know, whether it's Hannity or Rachel Maddow, they don't care. It's a very much of a corporate culture.
Yes. And I would say the same, like they have closer to do with each other. Too. Like that's
they're going to be they're the ones having lunch together.
Absolutely. That's like one of those things. Like it's almost wrestling. You know what I mean? Like they're at either end of the spectrum as far as, you know, left to right. But
I meant the advertisers themselves, because the advertisers will be on both stations.
Yeah, but I'm saying even with among those people, like I think that
the executives.
Yeah, or even the people on air personalities. Like, it's a very strange thing that, like, I think that those people are more so connected to each other than people who are their viewers or whatever.
I'll say this, the on-air people take it fucking seriously. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you ever go to a fucking football game, the guys are fighting on the field, and then there's the owners' boxes right next to each other. And the owners are actually partners in that fucking league. They're literally partners.
Right.
The guys on the field are bleeding, punching, clawing, but the guys up top are like, I don't know about this game, and they're just fucking drinking. I'm gonna get some martini, something that fancy people would drink. So good. You may have, you know, most of the people. Well, I'll just say this before we move on. Most of the people in either one of those businesses, whether you're the executive of a network or you are an advertiser, only see a football game, a talk show, a sitcom as something that happens in between the commercials. If it was up to them, it would just be commercials and they would just make money. But people don't watch just straight commercials unless it's in the middle of the night. And whoever was the first guy who invented an infomercial, I guarantee you when that started to work, they thought, could this work all day? Could we just keep this going? I knew the guys that started Home Shopping, and they had a fucking radio station, and I think it was light bulbs. I might be wrong. And and they ran like a little local talk. I think it might have been even like TAN. I mean, it was some fucking station in Florida that reached, a couple of miles in any direction. And the guy couldn't put up, and they took merch, right? Mm-hmm. And then the talk show host that day, they just had him sell these fucking things. And they figured out after 4 hours, they made more money than they did selling advertising. And that was the start of their idea. That was the start of, hey, if we could do this on a much larger scale. And they started to do it on the radio station, and then they went on public access, and that was the very beginning of satellite. But it came from that idea of, wow, this is a much better if we sell these fucking things cheap than if we sell our spots cheap. And then let this guy talk about, a fucking pothole that he's upset about.
I think that's funny that still worked. Like, it makes sense that it worked at the time, but I can't believe things like home shopping still exist. It seems like that would be such an outdated thing now.
Well, there's a little movie I want you to go see starring J-Law that turned her into a hero for some reason for selling a fucking mop. We were supposed to watch that for 2 hours.
I didn't see it, but
you got to watch it. You just have to watch it.
Is it engaging? Like, do you feel like you're wrapped up in the mop sales?
You can watch a movie about anything, but there are a lot of people out there who buy, those success books and get better at feeling good books and make yourself into something books. And it was aimed towards that mentality. It literally was, if you read some kind of never give up book by this woman.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is her name in real life was also Jennifer Lawrence.
Was it really?
Yeah. She was Jennifer Lawrence playing Jennifer Lawrence. She had a little more of an accent, and she was so tired. She was so exhausted. And her dad wasn't nice. Oh, God, her dad was a dick. But she just kept fighting. Her husband was terrible. He was a terrible person. She still liked him in a way, but she never gave up her dream, which was to make money.
This does sound good.
Her dream was to make money by selling stuff. It was a beautiful dream to have.
Well, every child has that fantasy. Like, one day I want to sell things to people.
Everybody has the make money fantasy except for Chris Stanley. Oh, yeah. He has the spend money fantasy.
Gotta get that out of my pocket.
Chris is one of those guys that out of nowhere is going to be walking past an armored truck and just grab a fucking bag and run.
Oh, no.
Like, you don't have a plan, nothing. He'll just say, like, there's a fucking bag there, and off he'll run.
What was it? The one guy who just grabbed like a bag of gold or something?
He grabbed a bucket of gold shavings. It was right around the corner from here. And, but I think he had more of a plan. Like I think he'd been like watching every day, like Groundhog's Day. 1, 2, 3, here comes the breeze.
No, Chris would have grabbed it, been like too obvious, just started running, and he would have been halfway up the block before somebody put 2 in his back. He could have been screaming while he did it.
All right.
Yeah!
Say whatever you want. 2 in his back ain't dropping that fucker.
He's like a wildebeest.
So maybe, well, here's the deal. It's Memorial Day weekend. Does anybody know who the first president was to celebrate Memorial Day?
Grant?
Guess what? Chris Stanley. Fucking good boy.
Holy shit!
I just fucking sat thought, what? All right.
Yeah, that was the post-Civil War thing.
I had no idea.
Oh my
yes,
God.
You did. You just said Grant.
Look, Grant's my go-to for most presidential trivia.
Yeah, but you lucked out, Chris.
Vito, who's your favorite of all time?
Favorite president of all time? Probably Lincoln.
Okay. Way to fucking break away from the crowd.
I couldn't think
what
of
about for you, Gail?
Taft, maybe?
For what reason?
Just like as a character, I think he's just very funny.
Well, he invented the 7th inning stretch.
That is my favorite.
And stuck in a bathtub. For only president ever to be, they had to come and dislodge out of his bathtub because it was so large. But in his defense, they have really small bathtubs.
That's what I was going to say, because like I've seen pictures of the guy, and while he is big, I wouldn't say he's morbidly obese. I mean, he's
400 pounds plus. He was over 4 pills when he was in the White House.
But still,
and back in the time when people were 110, right? Even if they were 6 feet tall.
When people were so hungry.
Hassan Minhaj is here. What's he promoting, Chris?
Hassan Minhaj, Homecoming King, which is available now on Netflix. It's special.
Let's bring him in. It's Hassan Minhaj. It's the Homecoming King. He's here.
What's up?
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
You just keep hitting it though, right? Lately, it's just like you're pushing.
I'm not sleeping.
Is that right?
I'm just running off of coffee and just sheer adrenaline and fear.
Yeah.
Absolute panic.
When you put a special together like this,
yes.
Unlike stand-up, it's permanent. It stays there.
Yes.
How do you feel about this?
This is, I spent 3 years working on this show.
Yeah.
Over 3 years, developing it, taking it to the Sundance Labs, doing it off Broadway, touring it. So by the time we took it, to shoot it for Netflix, we had really honed it. And so I wanted to make something that I think captured, these evergreen stories about love, identity, the American dream, and have it exist for people to see for a long time.
But did it feel good when you finally got it in the can? Like, I've done it in so many different ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Now I can leave it and go on to the next.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I had polished it to a point where it's like, I'm ready to do. I remember like midway through the tour. Mm-hmm. And I actually came up, we talked before, right when I was still at Cherry Lane.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I'm about to go on tour, and then it was, midway through the tour, I was like, I'm ready, let's do this. And then when you actually shoot it for Netflix, you have to take it to a whole nother level, the big LCD screens, we had to score it, the music and all that stuff. It became this whole other challenge, but I had some of the best people working with me, and it was really great to work with them, man.
How is everybody at Netflix? Because it seems like they've kind of taken over comedy. What is it like working with them?
They're the place to be. They're really cool. I worked with an amazing team. Like, the people that I worked with at Netflix were awesome. They saw the show off Broadway and they were just all in. They were like, we believe in this. This is a story that needs to be told, especially right now in America. We need this. So we're all in.
Right.
Yeah, it was really cool. And they let me do a lot of interesting things with the cameras and the visuals. They really let me do new stuff in the space, which I'm excited.
It really is interesting from a stand-up point of view. Like, well, have they been around doing specials for just a few years, right?
Yeah.
And now it's changed the entire landscape. Like, they're the number one go-to.
Yeah.
Or no matter who you are.
And also now they're not bound by just the States. They're in over like 150 countries. It's pretty incredible. Well,
for you, a lot of people who just know you off the Daily Show and stuff would think that you're a political comedian, but that you never came in that way, right?
Yeah, I started off just doing stand-up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then as I got more into stuff, I started talking more about politics and, you know what I mean? More topical stuff. Yeah.
But, with the correspondence dinner.
Yeah.
There is such a weird thing because people who don't even watch stand-up watch that show.
Yes.
And I don't know what it's like. I'll watch it every year, like the Kentucky Derby. You know what I mean? Like,
what's your thing? I mean, you turn on C-SPAN for the first time in the year.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, man. It's me, 8 other people, and 4 cats. We're watching C-SPAN. What's going on?
But I always...
It's C-SPAN 1, by the way.
Yeah. But, Colbert kind of broke. That was like a major thing for him. I remember when Imus did it, it was such a fucking great train wreck. You know what I mean? Just like ridiculous. So that aspect, part of you kind of wants to see.
Yeah. People really want to, what's so interesting? When you're in the room, you feel like you are bombing. The groans you hear, you honestly feel like you're in a boxing match. Where just like, you're like, really? I did a USA Today joke. Like, this is a layup of a joke. This is not even, just wait till I get to the Steve Bannon stuff.
It's so fascinating watching that audience because they'll cut to those faces too. Yes. Where like no other program would do that. But you would never cut to the people.
Isn't that the allure of it?
Yes.
People want to see that. People want to see you make fun of Wolf Blitzer and him not laugh. People like that. There's something in that tension.
But you think of a comedy roast, the audience feels safe, but at this thing, it's like you're roasting the audience itself, right?
Yes.
Because these people work in this industry.
News media. Yeah.
And I think the two things that they probably fear are getting mentioned and then not getting mentioned. Either one of those.
Right.
You know, if you're not big enough to get mentioned.
Right.
Was there any of the jokes that you wish you could take back, or were you happy?
No, there's jokes that I wish I would have done.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. So when you get to the gig, you sit at the dais and you get a program of who's attending. Mm-hmm. And so I open up the program booklet and I immediately see Ben Carson's name in the booklet. And I'm sitting at the dais and I got to eat my salmon before my gig or whatever, you know.
In front of the audience.
Yeah, in front of the audience. It's so weird. It's like my wedding, but it's not. And then I text my friend. I go, my head writer, Prashant, he was sitting with the writers to the right of me. I go, dude, Ben Carson is here. Fine. Is this true? Because the entire administration boycotted with Trump. Find out if this is true. He texts me back, dude, there's 2,600 people here. How are we going to find Ben Carson? I'm like, yeah, but there's only 4 black people. Find me Ben Carson. So they went around the room. They're like, yeah, that's Van Jones. That's Don Lemon. All right, he's not here. So I had all this Ben Carson material that I kept all these backup scenarios ready to go. If Kellyanne Conway shows up, here's my Kellyanne stuff. Here's my Ben Carson stuff.
Wow.
So if you actually watch the C-SPAN broadcast during the dinner and stuff, you can see me just violently crossing out stuff, getting rid of cards. Like, so I so wish I could have done my Ben Carson stuff.
That is, first of all, I never even thought that you have to sit and eat in front of the audience. It's the worst thing I've ever heard of.
And people are like, oh, what's the food like? It's food at a Hilton.
Yeah.
How good could it be?
Right.
So it's just, it's eh.
Yeah, it's every wedding you've ever been to in your life. You can't make 800 salmon and have it taste good. Yeah. 800 steaks at the same time.
Yeah. And the whole time, you're about to perform. I don't want to eat.
Right. Yeah, that's the last thing.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is eat.
But was there a point while you were doing it where you're like, okay, I got it. I know, you know what I mean? Like that thing, or did it always feel tightrope the whole time?
It felt kind of tightropey the whole time. I think by the time I got to the CNN stuff, I really felt good. I was like, oh, we're doing really well here. And then when I got to now you know what it feels like to be a minority, and it got a huge applause break. I was like, oh, okay, we're coming around to home base.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And also you just never, I mean, you're wailing up there the whole time.
My thing is, look, and every performer's energy is different. I'm just like, I'm gonna tell you these jokes with a smile on my face. Yeah. And it can be the most cutting thing ever. I'm gonna go after Bill O'Reilly. I'm gonna go after all you guys, but hey, I'm glad to be here. I shouldn't even be here.
Right.
For me, this was Rocky 1. All I gotta do is go the distance against Apollo Creed. I got nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose. Everybody else who they were asking to do it, Alec Baldwin, Kevin Spacey, they got a lot to lose. For me, I got everything to gain. I'm the young kid. I just gotta go the distance.
And the guys that you came into the business with must be just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? That's what's always funny. Because you can remember, it's not that long ago you're hanging out with diners after the show, but what just happened at that one-nighter, you know, and now this is your problem. You know, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. But you know what's so beautiful about it? At the end of the day, as prestigious as the gig is, it's still a ballroom comedy gig.
Yeah.
It's a ballroom. People are like, what is it like?
It's a corporate
gig. In a shitty Hilton ballroom.
Yeah.
We've done a million of these.
The room, the ceiling's too high.
Yeah, the acoustics are bad.
Yeah, they never set up.
The audience doesn't want to laugh. Like, we've been here before. It's just, and think about this. The people taping it is C-SPAN.
Right.
So the most important set of your career is being taped on 3 handy cams.
But I know that they ran your set during CNN. I don't know whether they did.
Oh, wow, they did.
Yeah, because I was, and they actually, CNN did a pre-game show for you, and people were talking about they're bringing in other comics and people from humor, you know what I mean? Right. It was just weird. Here's a humorist, and they were just doing like, oh, we've got to, he's really got to walk that line, and I'm really cracking up watching this show. Yeah.
You guys, that's my whole thing. You guys are news. What are you doing? We're a panel of 9 experts. So what is it like? I mean, what do you think he's going to do? Well, he's going to have to, put together a bunch of sentences that incite laughter. Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Now, when you're doing that, because this is what I was thinking, is that I could feel that it was going so great. Like I knew that it was going great. Can you hear people laughing in your head, knowing people at home are laughing, knowing your peers or, people you work with, even if you're getting like deadpan face from Wolf Blitzer?
I knew that groans or sometimes these awkward, like, ooh, like some of those, because I kept it tasteful. I didn't make it about people's appearance or anything like that. So I knew that as long as I was cutting on your character, your merit, I knew I was like, oh, this is cutting deep.
Right.
People at home are going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were getting laughs in the room. I
wasn't bombing.
I remember when Colbert did it and he had Bush right next to him.
Yeah.
You could have heard a pin drop in that room. People, and it was hilarious. I mean, he was so funny and that was like the first time where you could start streaming stuff on the internet. So people said it was going great, but he thought, oh my God, they hate me. And then later he still says he hasn't seen it. He hasn't gone back and watched it.
Because it was just too uncomfortable for him?
Do you like watching your stand-up? Can you go back?
I didn't watch it for the longest. Yeah. I actually haven't seen it in its entirety. Mm-hmm. Through Twitter and stuff, people have sent me like little nuggets of it. But the way I wanted to deal with it was like jumping out of a plane. Mm-hmm. I prepared for it the whole 3 weeks, and then when I jumped out the plane, then it's a wrap.
Right.
Yeah.
With Homecoming Cake, that's different because you've got to go back over that for long periods of time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have to watch it now. I've seen it plenty of times.
You've seen it, yeah.
So we really crafted it and worked on it in the edit, and it's like, all right, let's get this perfect, and then all right, now we're good with it.
For the people who haven't seen this, who don't know it yet, give them just like the theme of the show because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a one-man show, comedy storytelling show about my life growing up, me in America, and it's kind of centered around this Brown John Hughes movie of like a love story between me and my first love in high school and us trying to go and be together and go to prom together and what happens. And it, over the course of 10 years, it tracks what happens with me and what happens with her over the course of 10 years. My relationship with my dad, my relationship with her, and her relationship with her parents. And it sort of talks about like race, identity, love, and family in a real intimate way. It's really autobiographical, but I'm really proud of it because we really took chances in the way we shot it and the way we did it.
Now you say a Brown John Hughes movie.
Yeah.
You didn't have that to look at when you were a kid. I
never had that.
Yeah. So what was that?
There was just Long Duck Dong. There was
Long Duck Dong was the guy.
Yeah. I don't even know. Yeah. And Monkey Brains and Indiana Jones. I'm like, what? This is all we have. Yeah. We're monsters.
But did that jump out at you when you were a kid? Did it occur to you?
I knew that we're living in a really cool time in art right now. Mm-hmm. So many voices are getting to enter the market. It's really cool, man. And so to me, I wanted to put something into the culture that people could look back on and go, man, that was my life.
Yeah.
That was my relationship with my father. Man, I had to sneak out to go kiss a girl for the first time. I had to do that. I had to navigate these two worlds. This idea of living in this hyphen and bouncing between two worlds. I had to do that. And what's so cool is so many different people from different backgrounds have hit me up about that. Like, I'm Sicilian, but my mom's from the family's from Italy, and they were telling me I had to get into the family business, but I wanted to do this. Like, everybody has dealt with that in some capacity. This generational divide. Where's my place in the world? What is my identity? All that stuff. So to do it in a real intimate way, that was what's exciting. And it's not a million laughs per minute, but we have real like nice moments, you know,
places that you can break this tension and stuff like that.
But that's where I think a lot of comedians, sometimes we're more interesting than we are funny.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was the initial thing of there's a story to tell and then you break it up with the laughter, you know, like if you look at, I don't know, you go back to Mark Twain, he wasn't trying to get 18 laughs a minute, you know. He was doing this thing and then he just also happened to be funny. But you know, when you're talking about the changing world, Jen, who's our producer, we just did like that DNA thing for her and she's 3/3. So what are your three things that your DNA came back?
I am Asian, Indian, South Asian, and European. And African.
So there's three, like literally like a pie equal. Chart.
So you're a quarter.
Yeah.
No, a quarter of everything.
Yeah.
A third. There is no, so you're 1/3 Asian, 1/3.
Your mother and father are both biracial?
Well, my parents are from, one's from Trinidad,
right.
St. Vincent. So, I was always curious what their nationalities were. Because my mom looks Filipino. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell people. So then I did the test. Yeah. And it came out that I'm mostly Indian.
When you grew up, what did you, were you just like, Trinidadian culture is my culture?
I always said West Indian.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But West Indian has a very specific culture.
Yeah, they do.
Especially, and people on the East Coast, New York, Toronto, like that.
Yeah,
people are aware.
they understand it.
Yeah, but if you come out to Cali, people are like, West Indian, what is that?
Yeah,
right.
Isn't that strange? I love that about New York City, you can know West Indian culture, you can, we have Hasidics, and we're we talk about, how Hasidics do this, and then other places are like, what?
So that's the thing, I grew up in California, and the thing is, people are like, oh, California's so diverse. It's super, yes, it's diverse, but everybody's separated from everybody. It's sprawled out. Right. So it's super, kind of segregated. What I love about New York is come one, come all, whatever costume or outfit of your choosing, you're a New Yorker.
Yeah. And everybody gets a parade. That's the other funny thing. Once they're like, yay, and everybody else shows
now
up,
it's your day.
But, when you bring up, you're saying, West Indian being so, remember when, Russell Peters was the first guy who was breaking that down island by island, and those people came out in droves, right? Mm-hmm. And no one knew where that audience was coming from because they weren't a comedy audience. And they're like, he's noticed us. Yeah. He's busting our balls. This is great.
To be recognized. Yeah. And seen.
Yeah. And a lot of that had to do with growing up in Toronto. Yeah. Which was, it's got that same thing where immigrants are coming from all over. But this is obviously, with Trump getting elected and saying about, walls and different things. Yeah. It's really put it back into people talking about race.
Yeah, because I think for the longest time, we're cool, we're good. Yeah. We got Obama, we're alright. We got some flare-ups. Yeah. But, we're good. And then, when he came out with the greatest hits, we're like, oh, racism's back. Yeah. Okay.
Today.
It's always been here, but alright, it's really back.
I don't know whether you saw him at NATO today, but he was just
what did he do?
Ripping all the other NATO countries about not spending enough money on defense, and he goes, we don't even know where these immigrants are from. And I thought what was really interesting is that he was doing it in front of them today. You know what I mean? They're all standing there, and they're in the new NATO thing, and he goes, I won't even ask what this building cost, okay? He's just looking around. And it reminded me of a dad at the wedding where he goes, I don't know, the girls, but I'm the one paying, obviously. Right. But, I feel like this trip made him bolder than he was a week ago.
Yeah. You think he fully understands the magnitude of what he's doing, that he's talking to the world, that he's speaking to the most powerful people in the world?
I would never bet on that. I think he's his own movie. Have
you met him before?
No. Okay. I've been in the same room, and there was this great thing years ago where we were at a Tyson fight, and my producer at the time walked up and handed him a card and said, we'd like to have you on the show. And we watched him look at the card, and as he's walking, just drop it on the floor, and we just fell out, you know what I mean? But that, to me, has always been his who he persona, yeah. I think he's directing and producing his own movie in his head. It isn't the same reality that we're seeing. And I do think that he spends a lot of time going, I'm crushing it. I'm just fucking killing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. People have talked about he has the reality distortion. Yeah. So he'll just continue to say everything's great. The deals that I made are great.
And also a master salesman where you just got to get up every day and believe, and you're putting your aftershave going, you're the man. You're the man.
Yeah, we've talked about he is almost like the personification of The Secret. Yes. Where it's just if you just say believe it. I believe that I am going to be president, you'll just be president. And that sounds ridiculous, but for some reason he's able to do this. So I think everything that he makes up in his mind, if things are going well.
So do you think it's the other end of the spectrum, Obama inspired people, if you work hard, if you are a cordial, kind, charismatic, great orator, if it all comes together, despite where you come from in the world, you can accomplish anything. Is he the other end of the spectrum, that you can be a complete bumbling buffoon, but if you double and quadruple down on that, you can be president too.
Yeah, I think what shocks people around the world that America's always believed in both of those things, and they've always had that,
kind of this paradox.
I'm the wildcat going after an oil thing, and I'm going to will myself into the top, and then I'll become governor after that. You know, like we do have a lot of those stories. The whole West was won by people who had this belief that they were going to tame and defeat everybody around them.
It's wild, yeah. We are the big guy and the little guy. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
America's kind of both of those things. It's a paradox.
Yeah, we have there's so much like American mythology, you know? And we've seen it happen, and for some reason there's a weird thing that we even like the idea of royalty. Like, we like the idea that Trump kids, like, people are like, hey, those Trump kids could end up running things too. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
what is that, like the afterthoughts of the British stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the Kennedy family was royalty for a while. The Bush family had it going on for a while. Even the Clintons, where the wife was going to have the job after the husband.
Right.
So we do like that kind of branding. Homecoming King is available now on Netflix, and you've worked on this for years, and you're happy to have it out here. But it seems like this thing could be shot as a movie one day, using, you know, in a very John Hughes.
Maybe. That's something that we've been thinking about exploring, and it was something we were talking about at Sundance, and we'll see. I think we'll see. Always good to see you, my friend. Man. Take care. Thanks for having me. I'll see you next time coming through. Good to see you guys. Bennington Show. What is today? Thursday?
It is Thursday.
Okay. You know, for a second I thought it was Friday, because this place is dead like it's a Friday.
It's really, really quiet in here.
I think a lot of people got the 4-day week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember yesterday, Chris, and I'm going to say, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Yeah. Stinkly said.
Not correct.
Well, that's why I asked. That's why I asked for the help.
Stanley.
Stinkly.
Stanley.
Stinkly.
Stanley.
Why can't I do that? What is it about that word?
Stanley.
But Chris said that, how do the homeless sleep on a train? Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because what was the reason?
Because the lights are never off in a train.
Well, there's a watchdog keeping an eye on you by the name of Leslie, who is also a great film reviewer, who says, could you ask Chris why multiple listeners, including myself, have watched him sleeping on the N train?
Really?
We've had this on the air. They've taken pictures of you.
Someone took a picture of you sleeping on the train.
Yes, I remember that now.
You sleep on the train quite often. And she says that she rides in the same train. She's from your part of Queens and sees you sleeping all the time.
I'm resting my eyes.
So
yes, that's what the homeless do.
They're just resting.
You're resting your eyes and dreaming. Leslie actually has a great review up today on the show that I begged you guys to watch, called I'm Dying Up Here. Have you watched it yet?
Yes.
Yes, I have, yes.
And how did you guys feel about it?
I enjoyed it. I'm pretty interested. I think the premise is pretty unique, and I don't know, I'm into it.
It's been tried, you know, occasionally. Well, I mean, we have a lot of people doing stand-up shows, The Life of a Stand-Up, Louis, Pete Holmes. This is the one that's somewhat based on the way it was back in the 70s. What did you think of it, Chris?
I liked it. I thought Mussolini was awesome in it. And I like a show with casual coke use.
Well, that was the 70s. There was quite a bit of casual. Literally, no one in the 70s thought we could be addicted to it. We just thought it's a nice, clean high. It's like a cup of coffee for your nose. But I'm closer to agreeing with Leslie than you guys, where I think it takes the fun out of funny. That there is. For some reason, they're way too heavy with it.
I was interested to it'd be interesting to me to know people to say, like, this was an accurate depiction of even a feeling of that time period. Because,
yeah, I think that she does miss the fact that it's a ball. Even when, like you see, like let's look at the last couple years we've known Greg Stone and Anthony DeVito.
Yes.
When we first met them, they didn't have success. They were having a ball though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they might be saying, I'm broke, blah, 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 but they all hung out together, and now some of them are getting some of their, you know, TV shots and stuff like that. So that's exciting. But those guys were having a good time, even more. I just feel like the dialogue, particularly Melissa Leo's, is very heavy, very, you know.
Yeah.
Look, they're not curing cancer. They're not doing a fucking moonshot. They're doing comedy. You know what I mean? These are people who dropped out of society to begin with, you know?
I am interested in the premise. I don't want to give it away for people because, it happens kind of early on, but the idea of like figuring out how someone died was either suicidal or accidental. Like I've
seen the first 6 episodes.
Yeah.
They've spent very little time on that.
Really?
Matter of fact, they use something in the first 2 episodes that don't show up in the next 4. That thing has just been left behind.
So what is the trajectory of the show after the first episode? Like what is the focal point?
Who's going to make it? Why they're jealous of each other? Who also... It's a really good point that I think they're missing that thing other than, hey, damaged people go on stage and they bleed on the stage for your enjoyment, man. Right. You know, I don't know where they're going with this in terms of thematically, but and there's only one stand-up thing that felt really true to me, even though all the guys do stand-up. And they actually put it as Al Madrigal does this thing about Mexicans, and he goes, why is it that if you say whatever you put Mexican in front of something, it sounds worse? Carnival, Mexican carnival. Hospital, Mexican hospital. I mean, that's a really fucking funny bit. But some of the other bits gets like too heavy.
Right.
You know, and, you know.
You think they're missing the boat on like a silliness and just fun, loving, and
the fact that, hey, we're doing comedy. This is great. You know what I mean? Like, if you look back, I thought that the show that kind of captured that perfectly was Tough Crowd, where these guys were just saying, we're going to bring up these topics, but in the meantime, we're making fun of each other's shirts. You know? Like, we're having a good time being together. I think the show, anyway, she's much better at it than I am. It's, what is the title up there, Chris?
Review. Jim Carrey's I'm Dying Up Here misses the fun and funny.
Yeah, I do think that there is... I think that's pretty dead on. And look, I think the idea that these were the original guys and it's, you know, a veiled thing at the Comedy Store and you got to be tough to run it. But she's also having a ball in real life too. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's laughs all the time. You're in the business of laughter.
Well, the reason I was wondering about, you know, if it seemed realistic to the time is because, like, in the first episode, I was interested in the story, but I kept finding myself going, am I seeing something that is truthful of that experience? Like, is this just kind of like Vinyl but comedy, but maybe we're less so?
I think you're closer Vinyl with comedy.
Yeah.
You know? And also even like in the drugs thing, right? In all actuality, even people have drug problems, or alcohol problems, or sex problems, it takes a long time before they or anyone else notices that it's a problem. Right. I mean, you're looking normally years minimum.
Right.
Like you could see your buddy and drunk every night and not think, I think he has a drinking problem.
Yeah. That usually comes with a certain like length of time of knowing someone and like a maturity where you see somebody doesn't move on from that. But initially when you meet someone and that's what they do, they're like, oh, that's that guy. Right. He's a drinker. That's like what he does.
If you just moved to LA, right, and you're doing comedy and you're getting on at the big club, you should be drinking every night. You should be doing coke, and you should be sleeping with fucking different girl every night. No one's going to go, I don't know, man. I'm a little worried about him. He really seems to be enjoying his life out here in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's up on the iBang today. Also, up on the iBang is all the pictures, and Jen got a bunch of these of Red Nose Day. Jen, you know who you forgot to get, though, right?
Who?
Bennington Show.
Oh.
As soon as I saw this, I wanted us to be it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Today's the last day. We could get one today.
It's already up here, though. All right, let's go through these. Maria Bamford's is maybe the best.
It's so cute.
Just slow down, Chris. That looks like a circus shot, am I right? That's completely a circus shot. All right, next one. Robert Kelly, and his is, can you put it up here, Chris, because I can't read all the way across there, and I know you don't want to read. Robert Kelly looks like a tough guy with an he's put the hood over his head.
Yeah, that's got a bit of an ominous clown look. What is he holding there? I can't really see.
It looks like a glass, like a lens.
I'm not really sure what he's...
Keep going.
That's
Mike Vecchione, hope you saw him do the Tonight Show last night.
He was great.
And his suit needed to be returned immediately after.
He looks so good in that picture. That's an awesome picture.
Yeah. All right, next one. There's your buddy, Gail.
That's Annie Letterman.
Very, very...
Foxy.
Yeah, she is very foxy. She's the foxy clown. This is great. Tom Papa, he put his kind of Woody Allen hat on.
I honestly wouldn't... I think if I didn't see the name, I wouldn't have figured that out for a while.
Oddly, he looks like a spy. Like, there's that movie that the guy, before he kills people, puts on a red nose. And it reminds me of that. All right, keep going, Chris. Sherrod is beaming in this picture. He gives off a glow. Great shot. And you can see how theatrical he is. Gary Goldman is very, very sweet in this. And looks like he runs like a circus in some weird part of the world. Like, there's almost a surreal look to this one, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, he reminds me of like a French clown there.
Yes,
maybe
that's
it's
a good
the stripes.
call. The stripes make him look like a European clown. Ari Shafir giving the finger.
This is for children, Ari.
Yeah, but it's good. Like, the kids got to know he don't give a fuck. I love that picture. It doesn't even change his look that much, you know? Like, some of these people, like, I can't quite recognize them. But that just looks like Ari giving shit. Will Savensu is always down at the Comedy Store, and he did there was a thing that him and Big J did in a documentary that I saw about The Cellar. I said the Comedy Store because I'm thinking of the other thing. But kind of a legendary New York comic. We got to get him in. He's very edgy. Rory Albanese and Rich Voss. I always like when they double up like this.
Yeah.
And they look like two sad clowns.
Yeah, one of you has to be a happy clown.
And Voss's hat looks so great with this, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's great.
Dan Soder, I wanted him to, I saw that this picture being taken the other night at the stand, and it was right as he was getting a taxi, and I'm like, oh, you ought to do it while he's getting the taxi, and he was like, Soder was like, yeah, that would be great, right? I'm like, look, people do things like this. We don't have to mock everything, Mr. Funny Man. Christian Finnegan looks like an actor, you know what I mean? Like, he has the body and movement of an actor. Very, very funny guy. Feig also, since he's an actor, he understands the premise. Like, he gets isn't this bizarre? A man with these expensive glasses and this expensive suit you know what I mean? Like, he gets that thing. He understands it immediately. And with just a small movement. Berg is ripped.
Dude, I love that one.
It's just fantastic. Gives off the whole feeling of a bulldog. This next one is great, too. Yamanika Saunders, because her hair is going straight up, and she has that big smile. Look how great the city looks around her, too. These are all up on the iBang, by the way. That's Adele from the stand, and she's sexy and badass and runs everybody's life down there, and she's just great. Jameson. Needing a shave, the tough guy with the thing on.
It's like a hobo clown. It's great.
This is like a Leibowitz collection. You know what I mean?
It really is.
It looks like Rolling Stone magazine in 1981. Mark Norman wearing his Tonight Show thing.
He loves that shirt.
I like the fact he's one of the few to go for the bizarre eyes on this. I kind of like the guys in the street doing it too. You know what I mean? Horatio Sands, the great Tim Dillon, who is going to be singing on stage, doing a stage show over at the Creek in the Cave soon.
Really?
Yeah, he was a childhood actor, and it's in his, it's in his bones. It's in his cells. Hannibal Buress, who was just in here yesterday, looks like he's just ready to sneeze, like his red nose is ready to sneeze. Giannis Papas, everything that he does is great. Just great. Again, this is like another theater guy, Chris Gethard.
That's adorable.
Perfect, right?
So
this almost
cute.
starts to look like a world where people... These are all up on the iBang under what, Chris?
It's under...
Oh, boy. Got to go all the way back up and then back down again. Why don't you just say...
It's 32 comedians celebrate Red Nose Day.
We're all the way back at Maria Bamford again. We're trying to get back down. Oh, now you're too far. Now you're all the way at Vecchio doing a stand-up. You got to keep going. Anyway, I guess that'll be the end of it. We won't get a chance. I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. But these pictures are just fantastic, and it's all for some good charity. I'm not exactly sure which one.
I think it's like a couple different children's charities is the idea.
Jeez, we can't fit. Well, I'll just look on yours with you. You want to just do that?
Sure.
No, wait. Now Chris is
okay.
Back up again. He's going very slowly. There's Derek Gaines. He's great. There's our buddy, Tommy Johnigan, who, man, is really taking on the successful dad role.
He is.
Like successful dad. Sean Donnelly, who looks like just like he's been drinking. That's an Irish bar, and I know for a fact that he was drinking there all night.
It absolutely just like, oh, this poor drunk.
Yeah. Now, this is interesting. Pete Lee wouldn't even recognize.
No.
Pete Lee could actually put that on and rob a bank and be able to get away with it. Monroe Martin, who throws out the two longest fingers in history.
He makes this look cool, though, somehow.
Yeah. No, he makes everything look cool. Joe List, who doesn't change his expression or anything about himself. That's a great picture.
With the umbrella leaning on his shoulder.
Oh, there's Paul Morrissey. Paul is too cool to actually put the nose on and puts it up in front of himself. But the glasses work, but you notice now, even by looking at this, Paul's face is so much smaller than everybody else's. Like, just look how much of the ball takes up of his face compared with other people. Mike Cannon, that's a great shot.
Yeah, that one's really pretty.
Yeah. And I always like the thing in the back where somebody's going into a store and you can see them kind of blurry. There's Jeffrey Gurian outside of the cellar where he's been banned.
Yeah, I love that he went, like, his position of just being like, look at me, I'm a clown.
Yeah. I'm a clown with an open shirt and a wife beater. There's Molly Bean.
Oh, cute.
Now, Molly, I don't know if you can notice that. You really can't. But she's lost so much weight since she's been running 26 miles every day. And you could break a stick over her thighs, and I'm not making that up.
Oh, shit.
I mean, she's like a rock, like a complete rock. And here's the last one, and this is Steve Earle, and that's an amazing.
That is so great.
Kind of hobo troubadour look. It's fantastic.
Man, that nose looks really good with a beard.
Yeah, it does.
That's 32 comedians celebrate Red Nose Day. Get your own red nose to help children everywhere.
Now, if you remember last year, we got Willie Nelson, And this year we got Steve Earle. So we're always kind of ending with an outlaw country guy, which I love. Those are great, though. But I think it's really funny that Molly ended up in those pictures.
I know. That was outside the stand when you saw her?
Yeah. Unlike you guys, she came and saw me at the stand. It was really nice. So you guys watched Vecchione last night, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He was great.
He was so good.
And then he put up a picture of him backstage. This is a new thing, to put up a picture of yourself backstage lounging around with Jimmy. You know what I mean? Look, see, there they are.
Oh my God, that's great.
And Vecchione got out of his monkey suit and into something a little more comfortable. Jimmy's loving the guys from the stand, though. Just loving them.
Yeah.
And just see, like, that he ran up, like, Vecchione ended up on the couch, which, if it went back to your show that you guys, I'm dying up here. He got the couch. Fuck that fucker. If you care about this at all, you should want your friends to do poorly.
And then he did a bump.
By the way, I don't see a lot of people acting that crazy.
Not openly.
Not openly.
I think most people, even comics, like, if they have that type of jealousy, they're quiet about it. Like, they probably know that it's not the right thing to feel.
Yes, they know it makes you a bad person. Yeah. I remember when Chris was complaining because he wanted to do the show with Jim, and Sam got it. You were both up for it?
Yeah, that was what was going on, yeah.
Yeah, that was what was going on, yeah. Great number 2 guy. Seriously, we ought to take this out on the road. A comedy team. If this was a drug deal, they would have known we were undercover. And they would have shut us. They would have just shut the whole thing down.
It's just like,
yeah.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
That's my thing. Me too. Do it. Do it.
I don't know why that joke has never left me.
I never left me either.
I can't really remember much else from that movie, but I always think of Do It.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
And then the other guy, do it.
Yeah, do it.
What are you doing, man? That's my thing. And you know that Stiller just got that from some Jewish guy that, you know, he had run into. It's really funny, like, when Jewish guys can catch on to the weird thing that Jewish guys do. It's always funny. It's like, I have a Jewish friend. He goes, you ever notice that some Jewish guys do this? And I go, by the way, you're one of those Jewish guys who do that.
You do it.
It's not every stereotype is false. And I like it when we find new stereotypes. Yes. That's my favorite thing.
Well, that's the thing that people get upset about. It's like, no, stereotypes doesn't mean it's across the board, but you go, this happens a lot.
It's close enough. Yes. It's close enough.
A lot.
You know, my stereotype and people, they take it as a bad thing, but white men like to run stuff. They just like to be in charge.
Yeah. And it takes all of nothing for them to go, so I'll just come in here and I'll just fix this up. You know, this is how we'll do it.
Well, do you ever know, even beyond that is like white men are very willing to be consultants. Consultants on jobs that they either didn't do well or didn't do at all. Because I've worked at radio stations and a guy would come in and they would hire him and he'd be like, yeah, I've been listening to the show. And, you know, I want to spend a couple of days watching you guys and come back to you with stuff. And you're like, who the fuck are you, dude? Where did you come from? We've got #1 fucking ratings. This is what fucking happened. Our boss was like, hey, the whole corporation fund, he's going to do this with everybody. And just like, I don't want to hear his fucking opinions.
Yeah, but why is he doing it with everybody?
Because he said, I'm a consultant and I can help you get better numbers. And somebody went, well, that's great. The white guy's going to fly in here, listen to us, and off he goes. And that guy's still doing that job to this day. And he was never a big radio personality himself. But he's hired to this day by a lot of different places.
That's very strange.
TV has it all the time, too.
Yeah.
Roger Ailes, that was his first job. Leeds met Roger Ailes, MTV hired him to come in and tell the VJs, you know.
Wow.
You want to do this, you want to look at the camera, you want to sit back. TV does a lot more than radio. And the reality of it is, in radio, you miss a lot of things that you should be doing all the time. You know? We waiting on a call, Chris?
Yes, we are, yes.
All right, let's get into something. Well, we got time to dish. Can we dish for 10 minutes?
We can dish for 10 minutes.
All right, well then let's dish.
Let's dish.
Put on your headphones, Jen's got the news. Let's dish to the gossip they're saying on the radio.
Came strong down fast that time. What are we dishing about today, Jen?
So today we're gonna dish about the Conan O'Brien Al Roker feud.
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, what is this about?
Well, it's been going on for a while, ever since I guess Al Roker said that he took a shit in the White House, and Conan O'Brien.
Oh, he said he shit his pants?
He shit his pants.
Yeah. That was blunt for Jen.
And he, I guess, talked about it, Conan. And now he went on Andy Cohen's Watch What Happens Live.
Which one? Who went on, Roker or?
Oh, Conan O'Brien.
Okay.
So Andy asked him who was like your worst guest ever, and he immediately said Al Roker, saying that he's like a diva. And
True. I've had him on. Yeah.
Really, he's diva-ish?
Yeah.
I never would have thought.
I had him on here one time. It's actually when I was on 57th Street, and Jimmy had written them up in the book, so I tried to put the both of them together. And Roker ran out of the building. He said it was a setup. And then I got a call back from the Sirius people. This is when XM moved over to Sirius. And they said, we will never book another guest on your show. And I said, guess what? You never have before anyway. So I don't give a fuck. I don't need guests on my show, ever. And then the whole thing dropped. But Roker acted like a big fucking baby. Like a big baby.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I also heard he's a little diva around the Today Show place.
Wow.
But he's he's a workhorse. He's never off TV. He would have cooking show, whatever. If you could be on TV 24 hours a day, he would do it. But you wouldn't think that he's thin-skinned, and he is.
Wow. So Conan said he was a prima donna when he came.
Yeah, when he came in and had a guest appearance on his show, and that was the last time he ever came on because of that awkward interview that they had.
Was that pre him pooping in his pants or post?
I think it was post.
Okay.
Post poop.
So has Roker commented since this happened?
No, he hasn't.
I bet he's steaming. I bet he's steaming, Willie Beeman right now. He's so mad. But yeah, I agree with Conan on that. I thought he was a big baby that day, and he caused a lot more. And they said that he went running out of this building at the time. And the girl isn't even with us anymore. I think it was the one that used to do the rock guest after that. And she had to jump in the elevator and run down with him and was like, please, Mr. Roker, we're just joking.
So nuts.
And by the way, Jimmy's fucking phone hookup was so bad, it never even happened. But I literally thought it would be like a fun bit.
Right.
Actually, if I'm going to be totally honest, it wasn't my idea, but it was somebody else's idea. But then I'm like, yeah, that sounds like fun. It wasn't Jimmy's either.
Right.
But when it came back to because I guess he was mad at Jimmy and at me, I said, no, it's all fucking me. It was my show.
Right.
Fuck you. I was really pissed because I hadn't been around booking people who thought that they could change your life. You know what I mean? By not having, my whole career, I'm not getting anybody on the show. So what do I fucking care? Seriously.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say, oh, I want to get the best guests for Unmasked, but this show, no, I want to take people that it'll be fun to be on the show with. The amount of people that we turned down. How about when you start working here, you didn't know the weird thing that me and Chris do.
Yeah, so when I first started working here, despite having known Ron for years beforehand, I was learning everything over again about the way the two of you communicate. So we would be in mid-conversation post show, and then it would be a conversation, and it would be like Chris would just interject while we were talking, and he would say something like Al Roker, and then Ron would go, no. And then we would go on, and I'm like, what just happened? It took me so long to figure out those were booking meetings that he would just yell a name out because he just checked his email. And on the flip side, the way I figured it out would be a guest would show up, and I would go to Chris, when did this happen? I didn't know this person got. And he goes, yeah, you were there. And I'm like, what was the conversation? And it would be he just said the name and you went, yeah, sounds good. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that was a booking. I did not know that was a booking. Now I know.
Some of those are actual bookings and some do you like the idea? Right. So they're always doing stuff like Robert De Niro. Would that interest you?
Yes. I'd be interested.
Don't even call me. Don't even call me if it's Robert De Niro. All right. Well, we're about to pitch him. We've got enough shows.
Right. That's the other thing is sometimes they're just hypothetical people who might be coming by. Yeah. So it was very confusing. It took me a while to figure out the way the two of you communicated about booking. With as few words as possible.
Yeah, because it is just a gut thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And most of the time, it's I don't care. I don't want to.
Well, this is what they're promoting.
Sometimes, you'll help out a booking person when they're I don't have enough shows to put X, Y, Z on. Would you please take? And if they've been good to you and got you good guests, then I'll do it for them.
Right.
But that's even stopped. I mean, there's too many great people that run through here all the time.
Yeah.
And there's too many talk shows, too, that will, somebody will always take somebody.
And it is shocking, if people could hear the amount of really great people that we go, hey, I don't see that working.
Oscar winners.
Yeah.
Oscar winners. We'll go, nope.
We're we'll find out the movie and go,
yeah, you we'll catch them in another project because I don't want to, talk to them about the Lego movie. No, that's a lie. I don't want to have to sit through the Lego movie.
But talk about it.
But I always do this too. I'll go, no, and then Jen will go, but I always wanted to meet him. Okay, then. Because I always
that has happened.
Yeah. If somebody oh, you really, that's your favorite?
Or maybe someone you had in before and you didn't, I wasn't here for, and then I just give you eyes we could have you in.
The only way I'll definitely say yes, I don't care who they are, if they come in with a guitar and sing. But yeah. Let's have the songs.
Yeah, those are always the coolest experiences.
Yeah. A lot of times when they're performing, I'll just take some food and just start eating in front of them.
This is great. A little
goat cheese
break for me.
I always act like I don't like goat cheese, but I eat everything with goat cheese. Why is that? Let's dish.
So the next story is about Odell Beckham Jr. and Iggy Azalea dating. Supposedly she's kind of like a bad influence. He's skipping practice.
He's a bad influence too, though.
I think she's a little bit
I didn't
worse.
know they were dating.
No, they're both bad people, wouldn't you say?
Odell Beckham Jr. is a child. He's not too bright.
He's a child with a phenomenal amount of athletic ability.
Ridiculous hands. Just to jump incredibly high.
What is Iggy Azalea doing? I mean, is she still making music?
She is. She just put out a song.
She's playing D-back right now.
She has a booty bouncing song that she just came out with.
Why not when they bounce the booty? I'm glad it's coming back. It made me sad when twerking was going away.
Yeah, well, they were seen at a bowling center.
Sweet.
Bowling.
They were out bowling, and then he came
for children. It's an adult sport.
I feel if you're gonna go, I think a bowling was a date. I guess that's a weird date. I feel like,
but it was during his
such a common date.
It's even in the city. I mean, it's obviously common out in the middle of the country, but in the city, it's a fun, hey, we're all bowling.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be good at bowling to go bowling.
Yeah, it's a very common date.
Movies and TV shows use that as a common date that people go on all the time.
You just think that he's stupid. You haven't said a word all day, and this guy...
You gonna attack me on this fucking anti-bowling stance I have?
He thought that bowling was for children, which, by the way, it's hard to bowl when you're a little kid.
But I only went bowling. I've never gone bowling as an adult.
Well, you don't represent fucking any kind of normalcy.
You don't run, you don't hike, you don't swim. What do you mean? You don't
own a knife and fork?
You have no dishes in your home.
But it really is funny when a lot of people will do what Chris does just by themselves. And they'll go like this. People don't listen to hip-hop. Like, what? They don't. I was out last night. Nobody was listening to hip-hop. What's this?
So, Amber Heard.
I don't know her.
Amber Heard?
Yeah.
She used to be married to Johnny Depp.
No, we do know her.
Yeah, you know.
She's gorgeous.
But mean. Mean is the snake I hear.
Really?
Mean is Al Roker.
She was, she divorced Johnny Depp, and they're saying that part of the divorce was also when she was doing a movie called London Fields, and she was going to get naked for it. And now the producers of that movie are suing her for $10 million for allegedly refusing to promote the movie and falsely claiming she had not contractually agreed to allow the use of nudity in it.
So she thought if she was promoting something that was naked, the judge would be harder on her.
Yes.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
She's stupid. He's lucky to be out of her. Although, there was a movie I saw, Keeping Up with the Joneses, I think is the name of it.
Oh yeah, with Demi Moore?
Yeah. Demi. Dom. And she played the daughter, and she was unbelievably fucking hot, but terrible actress. Like, anytime she started acting, you're like, get back to the other parts, please.
Just quietly.
Yeah.
Quietly stand there and be
Go
pretty.
swimming.
I liked her in Magic Mike too. She was like the main love interest.
Yeah, I tried.
See a Magic Mike.
I saw the first Magic Mike because it was shot in our old neighborhood in Florida, and then I'm like, man, this is a tough watch. And then Magic Mike 2, I gave maybe 5-8 minutes to one. Both of these I'd only seen on TV. And I gave 5-8 minutes. I'm like, I can't. I'm
gonna watch Magic Mike this weekend.
I'm gonna go back over and watch Mad Dogs on Amazon Prime. I'm almost done the first season.
There's multiple seasons?
Chris, it's not that you're interested. Why would you say that? You
I want to know.
No, you don't want to know. What you want to do is be part of a conversation. It's sad.
I was thinking of watching Mad Dogs. I want to see what I'm getting into here. 2 seasons?
What do you think he was going to respond? No, there isn't. I just said I'm going to watch a season that doesn't exist.
Even a movie, I can say I saw the first episode.
So strange. Okay.
Let's dish.
We're
all good. We hate Amber Heard.
I thought kind of what was interesting about this story too is that movie, her love interest was Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
And supposedly Johnny Depp kept saying that them two were like hooking up, and they had to like really push those.
It's very funny when you'll hear like a big actor would be jealous because they have people getting jealous about them. So it must happen. They must do it.
Right.
But women love Billy Bob Thornton.
The ladies do.
They can't turn him down. And even when they break up with him, they still keep loving him.
There is something about that early relationship he had with Jolie that I think had an impression on women too, where you're like, you had one of the sexiest women on the planet. Yeah. In the palm of your hand. How?
Crazy
and it tends to fascinate women.
Well, they were actually doing it in public where they were grinding and wearing licking tongues. I mean,
wearing their blood around their necks, and they were like,
it's a very interesting thing when a man finds out like, oh, you slept with him. He's always disgusted. Always. But women like, this dude, he's slept with some pretty sexy chicks.
Yeah.
He's great.
Well, we're understanding for some reason that adults have had past experiences with other people.
Gross. Wait for me.
Like, the idea of not having experiences like that is much more bizarre to women. To be like,
come on, you know Fez is listening.
Don't worry about what they think.
We got to come back to you, okay? Because I'm solving the JFK murder. And the reason I'm doing this is I watched a documentary called I Killed JFK. It's going to screen for one night only in select theaters next Wednesday, May 31st, which this is crazy to me. It would have been JFK's 100th birthday.
Oh, wow.
He always seems young, right?
Yeah.
And you got a chance to watch this too?
Yes, I did.
Barry Katz is one of the producers, correct, Chris?
Yes, he is.
And we got him on the phone?
Yes, we do.
Go to ikilljfk.com for tickets and theater information, and also Barry's podcast, Industry Standard, available on iTunes. It's comedy super agent Barry Katz. Barry.
All right. What an honor. Always an honor to come back on your show.
Good to talk to you. Now, you produced this documentary, right, Barry?
Yeah, it's very odd for your audience who probably knows you and knows everything about you. You know, I'm a comedy guy.
Uh-huh.
I've always been a comedy guy. I do comedy TV shows. I do comedy movies. I do comedy specials. And I want to share with your audience and you what happened to me.
Okay.
Like you, things come to you. People call you. People say things to you. Will you see this? Will you talk to this person? And so I got a call from a friend of mine who is reputable, who said, listen, a guy's going to come to your office. He's going to show you something on his laptop. He's not going to look at you. He's not going to talk to you. He's going to show you the stuff, and he's going to leave, and you're not going to see him again. And he came in, and he showed me about a half hour to 45 minutes of these rare interviews of people who were around during the JFK situation in Dallas, tied to it. Their interviews on raw footage where they told of what happened that day, and all their stories interconnected, even though they didn't know each other. And it was shocking, and many of them were killed before they got to tell their story. A lot of them are still alive, and I was fascinated because, like you, the only thing that's important in entertainment and learning is a story. The only reason you're successful, besides your amazing co-host, is because you tell a great story. I'm kidding. And people love stories. And if you go to a movie, it has a great story, a book, a great story, a great song, a great story. And these people had amazing stories. Like, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not waking up every day saying, I got to solve the conspiracy. I was blown away by these stories. They changed my life. And so I flew to Amsterdam to get the rights to all these different interviews in various forms and documentaries that were half finished and interviews that were around. And I uncovered a lot of interview footage of the only living person who's ever admitted to killing JFK from the grassy knoll. And I put a documentary together, and I've been working 4 years on it, and I finally got a one-night special event theater presentation in theaters across the country on Wednesday, May 31st. And you can go to ikilljfk.com to get tickets. And afterwards, what I did was I found the 5 remaining living experts on the JFK assassination, and I interviewed the National Security Advisor from Eisenhower through Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. I interviewed the Lee Harvey Oswald's lover at the time. I interviewed the guy who was the journalist in 1963 covering everything at Dallas. And after the film, there's going to be a panel discussion about the JFK assassination and what went down that day.
Now, you weren't a JFK conspiracy guy before you saw any of this.
And I'm not one now.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share with people the stories of these people, because one of the things you and I know and your audience knows, you can listen to one person tell you a story and you're like, I don't know if this guy's reputable or not. I don't know if this woman's right. But these people are all like well-educated, reputable people who worked within these situations and the different factions of the CIA, the government, the FBI, for the mob. that had ties to all these different situations that happened that day. And it's not like I'm interviewing people who are behind a dumpster with a needle in their arm. These people are like, in their 70s and 80s and have a story to tell that's really fascinating and really credible, and they all tie together. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I think it's important that I share this with you and your audience.
No, this has kind of been the story of my lifetime. At some point in my life, it would come up, and I would see it all the time since I was a little kid. But what always still gets to me this day, and you guys have seen like a lot of people who've shut up schools or whatever, or terrorist attacks, and you never see anyone who acts the way Oswald acted, where I did not do this. I'm a patsy, and the pleading that he's doing in this is so weird. It's so chilling.
It was very bizarre. And, watching this, immediately I had said to you that I was like, I'm not sure I have the amount of history that you do on this subject, but I was completely pulled into this and very, very interested. Barry, was there like a moment or a story that hooked you to this that was like, okay, if I could convey one thing that I learned from this documentary? Because there's like a lot of moments like that throughout.
Yeah, there's a few things. Like when there's the interviews of the killer, and there's actually 2 interviews that he did 10 years apart. And what's fascinating is the first interview, you can tell he's like, you can tell when somebody's telling the truth or they're not telling the truth. This guy has never taken a dime. Oliver Stone went to him 3 times and offered him tons of money to talk and help him for the JFK movie. He wouldn't help him. Never took money from me, never took money from anybody in these interviews. He has nothing at stake. And the first interview he did, he was almost like uncomfortable and nervous because his best friend had been killed in Chicago who were involved in this with him. But then later on in his life, when he did a later interview when he was older, it was like probably he was realizing that, I got nothing to lose. But both stories and how he told them were the same. But I want to share something that I probably should share with you that really was bone-crushing to me, that is in the panel discussion, that blew me away. This guy, Gordon Ferry, who I interviewed at the end of the panel at the end. And he was the national security advisor to like 5 presidents. And he said these words to me. He said, Barry, when Trump says that he wants to drain the swamp, what do you think's at the bottom of the swamp? I've been involved in this my whole life, Barry, and let me tell you with facts. November 22nd, 1963 was like a party. It was like a social event in Dallas. People flew in from all over the world to see the assassination of JFK. He just was one of the few people who didn't know was going to happen.
And why would they hold on to this many years after?
Yeah.
Why would they still hold on to these stories over 50 years after it happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said too is like that reaction of Oswald is really peculiar. It's a very strange thing because usually in a case of an assassination or somebody for doing with terroristic intention, they tend to have a point of either pride or comfortability. With
like a soldier.
Yes.
Like it would be, they take the attitude of a soldier. I set out on a mission, and Oswald, the fact that he's pleading like that, the fact that James Earl Ray was able to get to him, which seems bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarre that somebody could just walk into a police station with a pistol, walk up and shoot somebody who had just committed the biggest crime.
This is what's incredible, and that person who shot him was Jack Ruby, and in the documentary, this guy who allegedly killed JFK from the grassy knoll actually met Jack Ruby, and Jack Ruby handed over the diagram of Dealey Plaza of the limousine driving changes. But one of the things that you just said is really fascinating, and I'll reveal something else that one of the panelists said. This guy, Jim Mars, who was a journalist in '63 for the Dallas newspapers. When I asked him the question is, how is it possible that, this could happen? Did this guy actually do it? And he was the guy who interviewed him as well on one of the interviews. And he said, Barry, in the end, does it really matter who killed JFK? Any lone nut can kill anybody. What matters is the select few people who had the power to cover it up for 54 years. And that's a lot of what we talk about, because when you think about it, no matter what your audience thinks who did it, if they think Lee Harvey Oswald fired a shot, great. If they think the Russians did it, great. If they think Cubans, CIA, LBJ, whatever you think, you got to look at it this way. Did the mob have the power to call the Warren Commission and doctor the report? Did the Cubans or Russians have the power to call the Bethesda hospital and change the autopsy? The answer is no. So when you really think about it and look at it, there's only three factions that have the power to cover those things up. And that's the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, or the Vice President of the United States, LBJ. Those are the only people. And the thing about technology that's fascinating, if this happened today, Lee Harvey Oswald would never have been accused and convicted. It would never have happened because there's videotape. Now, I know what you're saying, Barry. Well, there is videotape. There's the Zapruder film, which, by the way, is the most watched short film in the history of the world. But back then, there wasn't YouTube. There wasn't a way to pass it along. It wasn't on network television. There weren't 1,700 news outlets like today. So the government knew, even though that film, frame by frame, showed that the president was shot from the back and from the front, it wasn't available to anybody. So that's why they could sell the Warren Commission report of 700 or 800 pages that was a single shot to the rear, to give the country closure, to give them a thought like don't worry about anything, everything's going to be okay. It was just one nut from a window at the 6th floor depository, which not one person had any eyewitness account that he was in that window. But not one person could fire that gun properly of all the experts they had and put up the demonstrations to be able to hit the target. And so in this film that hopefully you'll go see on May 31st in a theater near you somewhere, if you go to ikilljfk.com, you'll see this, and it really changed my life forever, because these stories are so powerful and so convincing. But even if whatever you believe, it will give you incredible closure.
Yeah, it's, even like you said, when they, 50 years ago, they said, they wanted to have closure on it. It still has lingered around for 50 years. This has been literally the most interesting story of my lifetime. That this is the one that people have discussed most over my entire lifetime. And it's still cloudy, even with the fact of the people that are in this. How could something like that have even been covered up,
Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
No,
you go ahead.
I mean, first of all, it's the greatest unsolved murder mystery in history. Secondly, how it can be covered up. Over 100 people have been killed or died mysteriously trying to get the story out in the early years and the first 10, 15, 20 years, until when they finally did start telling the story, people didn't seem to care because it was so far in advance. They didn't feel anybody would believe it because it was already sold through the mainstream media that what had happened, it's already in the history books. So anybody who says anything, they're not as worried about it now. And that's how.
It's fascinating stuff, Barry. I'm glad to let us watch this, and everybody will be able to check this out. May 31st, which is also JFK's 100th birthday. Go to ikilledjfk.com for tickets, and then you're going to see something that I haven't seen yet, and that's Barry doing a roundtable discussion with some of the folks that were in this. Thank you so much, Barry Katz.
Always an honor. You are
Barry.
First class. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. Barry Katz, ikilledjfk.com, ikilledjfk.com. You know, to this day, this is Dallas, you know? This is a very big part of Dallas's thing that they carry. If you go to Dallas today, you go over, take the tour, blah, blah, blah. There's people every single day for 50 years that you take that tour and look up there is where that is. This is the grassy knoll. Some people, and you'll be there with like people from all over the world and also people whose lives have been intertwined with this for 50 years. When I was a kid, it was all the great assassinations of all the great men of the 60s were all killed by the end of the 60s. And when I was a young shock jock, I'm on the radio, and they said, you could do, and a friend of mine, Billy the Phone Freak, said, I have a chance to talk to James Earl Ray, who is the guy who killed Martin Luther King. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, in about like 20 minutes. So I do no research on it. And plus in those days I didn't do research anyway. I didn't give a shit. I just thought, how weird. I'll get to talk to James Earl Ray, who again was one of those names that was what Brutus was during fucking Roman days. Like this was the evil doer of my entire childhood. I mean, it would be no different if I got a chance to talk to Osama bin Laden. So he was looking for a liver or something. So I don't, like I said, this was just all off the cuff. But what he said, I brought it up to a lot of people and it fucking blew them away. People that had followed that. And I said something about killing Martin Luther King, and he said, I didn't kill Martin Luther King. And he's like, I'm in a federal prison, right? I'm in general population. I have nothing but black guys around me my whole existence. No one gives me any shit. No one's come over and tried to hurt me or stab me because they know I didn't kill Martin Luther King. Everybody in here knows that I'm just another guy set up. And I'm like, how the that one thing. Why didn't somebody there wasn't one Martin Luther King fan in an entire federal prison who thought, oh, I could be known, I'll kill this guy? And
it was very strange.
Yeah. Now, I ended up talking to different people about that were friends with Bobby Kennedy, friends of his, who said, you just fucking blew my mind. You know what I mean? Like what you just said to me, I never once considered. And that was another one. The CIA was rumored about with King, rumored about with Bobby Kennedy, rumored about with Malcolm X. It was something that was just done when I was a little kid.
So strange that was just like, was like a fad of that or something like that there was like a time period where assassinations were like
a given.
Yeah.
They were going to happen.
Really, really bizarre. But, Barry's right that, it is, no matter kind of what your theories are on it, or if you never had theories on it before, it is a really fascinating watch to, hear from these people who particularly, Files, who's the guy who's confessing, to this, like.
With that great Chicago accent.
Yeah. And with this matter of fact where it's like, he really doesn't seem like a fabricator. Like, he doesn't seem that way. He could be very good at telling the story, and maybe, he is making all of this up. But he's very interesting to watch, all of the people who come out. And then there's all these very bizarre details. I mean, I don't want to give anything away for those who are interested to watch it, but there's a part about finding a shell casing that just like really fascinated me, and it made me want to like delve into it more.
That was the thing for me that got to me too. Like I was pretty pushed back until the shell casing, and I'm like, it
was very weird.
Yeah.
It was a very weird fact, and it's kind of sticking with me that I'm like, perhaps there could be, maybe we're not getting 100% truth from every single person interviewed here, but there certainly is illuminating in a lot of ways.
Well, did you ever, your friend years ago, John Juvio, turned me on to this book called American Tabloid, which was, it was a fiction. It was the same guy who did LA Confidential.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking of the guys that were in the CIA at that time, had been through World War II, the Germans, the Cold War, blah, blah, blah. And they saw the world as a pretty harsh place. You know what I mean? Maybe if you were in that line of work, you still do today. You know what I mean? Maybe it's still today. But they felt, the Russians in Cuba was the end times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fucking absolute end times. And I can't imagine what the Secret Service goes through on a daily basis guarding a president. Particularly, if people forget 8 years ago, when Obama was elected, there was almost a silent prayer, please don't let anybody kill this guy because of what it would do to this country and race relations in this country.
100%.
You know what I mean? And when Trump got elected, there's the silent prayer of, please don't let anything happen that is going to make this right and left thing any worse.
Yes.
Do as much as we can to keep these people safe.
I know.
So we never have to go through it.
It's very true. I think about that with Trump, that how horrible that would be well, first of all, no country is free if your elected leaders are in danger of being assassinated. That's not.
Well, they're in danger. They've always been in danger.
So, but I'm saying when that happens, it's immediate.
Oh, when it happens, sure.
Yeah, it's like immediately.
It takes everything sideways. But I actually also thought of it with Hillary. I thought, if a woman gets assassinated, could this country even stand that?
No, would be something that would be it would be such a painful mark on this country that it would be so hard to overcome that.
Well, we're pockmarked, this country.
Yeah.
We are pockmarked by now. Anyway, it's ikilledjfk.com for tickets and information. You didn't get a chance to see this, right, Chris?
No, I did not.
And you're kind of a conspiracy boy. I mean, I saw what you were doing with Hannity.
They call me conspiracy boy.
Conspiracy boy.
That's me.
Do you ever have a JFK thing?
Oh, yeah. I was obsessed with the JFK assassination.
Do you feel like it was so? If you had to say today.
I feel like it was the CIA who assassinated him.
Jesus, you make a statement like that on airwaves. Chris Stanley, Astoria, Queens.
Social.
By the way, if anyone's a weird loner, it's you, dude.
I have 2 known friends. One's in Austin.
He would be very.
That's odd.
He would be very easy to make a patsy of.
Oh,
because of that.
I do it with him with Don. He's always the patsy, and anything that I don't do.
He's like, looks like Chris fucked us again.
I said I handed that over to Chris. He didn't hear back from him. I think he's after your job. I see you leaning forward. Do you have an opinion?
My favorite theory is the umbrella. The guy with the umbrella that was standing to the side. There's a video of him.
That's the Penguin.
But the guy, he pumped his umbrella right before JFK drove by, and then this guy had to do tons of interviews with people, and he got taken in by the FBI, and he had to be like, I was just closing my umbrella. And people kept saying it was a pump rifle.
It's a derailment. We're going to get around it. No, have you ever had an opinion about it, Jen?
No, I haven't.
No, none at all.
My big thing was just the OJ. I was obsessed with that.
Well, I mean, imagine OJ, right? If he had killed the president of the United States, it was even bigger. But yes, people went to that OJ thing. So you guys have seen that. There was just a movie last year on Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis that was nominated for the Oscar. This is 50 years after the fact, and people are still really, really, really thinking about it.
Do you know, I remember the first time I actually watched the Zapruder film, I had just assumed that I had always seen it because it's so iconic. Like the car rolling up, you see him in the back. And I thought that I had watched it and, like actually watching it all the way through, I was like, oh my, I don't think I had ever seen this. This must have been, like years ago. I was probably like 19, but I had just assumed because I knew what had happened and I had seen the stills from it. But it's like it's so horrifying that the moment I saw it, I remember just thinking like, no, that's the first time I've actually seen it all the way.
I don't think most people saw it until streaming video. I don't ever remember seeing it on TV. I'm sure it's been on at different places. But the first time I ever really remember like looking at it was streaming video. And I don't have any memory of JFK being killed, but I grew up in the JFK was killed shadow. And particularly they killed a Catholic Irish person. Mm-hmm. And my family had all the Time Life books that they would put out. There would just be pictures of the funeral. Oh, the Johnny we hardly ever knew ye, just really turning him into a saint. He was a saint in my house. There was pictures of Kennedy's on the wall next to the pictures of Jesus. That's the way I grew up. But the person out of everyone, because I was a little kid, that I was obsessed with was John. Obsessed with him.
Really?
As a child, because first of all, the attention was on him. He gave the little salute. And I was like, that's something I could do. I couldn't do anything else in the story. Right. But if there was a part for me to play, and then, everybody always said, oh, he's adorable. My whole life, women have said John was adorable.
Yeah.
And then he dies in that bizarre fashion.
God, I remember that day too. How strangely weird.
Do you remember
that
who they
was.
blamed on that? Oswald's kid. I goes, this is never going to end. Oh, and the guy with the umbrella. Did it work out that you went over there? Did you get that thing done?
It's not locked in, but it's moving forward, which is good.
Give me how long a time?
I was heard by end of business today that we could.
No, not end of business, but when would it take place?
June.
That's a large month. Okay.
I'll give me 1 second.
No worries. If you don't need to. You don't need to. I don't know whether you have a calendar like that, but it just doesn't just say June and there's just one empty spot.
Late June.
Okay. Well, I plan things. That's why I'm saying to you.
I understand.
Do you? Or else you'd say, Ron, I don't want this to get in the way of your plans. I know you got some plans coming up soon too, Gail.
Yes, I am. I'm gonna go to Miami with my friend who's getting married.
Miami, that's where Oswald has supposedly met up with Jack Ruby. And Sirhan. That Sirhan's still alive. That's the guy who killed Bobby Kennedy. And supposedly, he has no memory of it taking place. To this day, he goes, I don't. Sirhan says, not only don't I remember anything, I fucking loved Bobby Kennedy. Why would I shoot him? Now, he was right there and he did it, but that was always rumors of a Manchurian candidate type stuff.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember, too, just to show you how big it was, when I first started to be able to read, I would have been a little kid, you would see the yellow journalism magazines, right, sitting up, and I'd seen a thing that it said, Kennedy is a vegetable, and they showed a picture of John Kennedy in a coma with tubes in and out of him. And I'm fucking at the local fucking store. I'm seeing somebody have some fucking candy. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I go home to my mom and I'm like this, Mom, you know that Kennedy is alive and he's a vegetable? She starts fucking yelling at me, right? And I go, no, I saw it in the paper. It's on the front page of the paper. She goes, that's not the paper.
I do remember very similarly, like when I was a kid, not understanding that stuff was faked. And that was always
very hard to
when
understand.
I was a kid, it would always be like some sort of alien landing or something about someone being possessed. And
a Bat Boy. You were very much into the Bat Boy age. Fez has sent me some texts. When Chris said nobody bowls, Chris lost the beard porn bet when he went bowling.
It wasn't a date. That was gambling.
But you know that people go and do that, right?
People do bowl.
And then he still has an anti-Al Roker thing. And he says one time Al Roker demanded a car to come from 30 Rock to Sirius, which you could actually walk without ever even being on the street. You could go underground on the 6th Avenue. We all had a problem with Al Roker for a little while.
Oh, yeah. I don't blame you. And then, now it makes sense. Everyone's Team Coco on this.
Team Coco. Just like we were with Leto.
I was all Team Coco. I bought T-shirts. I went to the same high school as Al Roker, and they didn't like him for years because he never, showed up or did anything for them, and he had, a full scholarship, and they were pretty annoyed about that.
What school?
Xavier.
Really?
Yeah, he went to Xavier.
Xavier boy, huh?
Yeah, and then when I met him here...
Savior boy, Roker, he's a savior boy. He does weather too. Why don't we break here, guys, all right? Break. Everybody have a... What's this for?
This is a live read.
Well, why are we breaking if we're not really breaking? I could just say at Dish, they believe that going to Netflix should be easy. But getting your favorite shows when you have a million remotes and inputs to switch is anything but that. And Dish knows because they listened. That's what they do. They listen.
And then Dish fixed it. With the Hopper 3 DVR with Netflix integration, you don't have to change inputs or remotes to access Netflix. It's all your favorite content in just one click. Plus, with the Dish voice remote, you can even search for Netflix using just your voice.
Dish makes it easy peasy lemon squeezy, which gives you more time to unwind with the shows you love. To learn more, call 1-844-CALL-DISH or visit dish.com. Dish, tuned into you.
Call 1-844-CALL-DISH or visit dish.com. Requires separate subscriptions to Dish and Netflix. Voice remote sold separately. Monthly fees and other restrictions apply. Call for details.
Bennington Show. Up on the iBank today is a lot of great stuff, including Leslie's review of the new show that Chris and Gail like a lot more than me, called I'm Dying Up Here. Mike Vecchione's stand-up from last night. Go watch that in his brand new suit that he bought. And my favorite thing, which is the pictures of all the comics with the red noses on.
For Red Nose Day. That started as a British charity has been going on a really long time, and I don't know why it took us so long to pick it up here. But it's really popular there.
It's major.
All their celebrities get involved with it.
I first heard about it from the Ricky Gervais show, The Office. This is the first time I didn't even know that they did it over there. Very quickly, here's Mike in Chicago. Mike.
Hey, guys. Hey, I went from a total conspiracy theorist on JFK to now 100% convinced that it was Oswald alone based on a book by Bugliosi.
I had him on the show.
Yeah, I love him. I've read every book of his. Did you read his JFK book?
He brought it in. This was the thickest book I've ever seen in my life.
1,500 pages.
I mean, it was gigantic, and I was just like, I'm not going to get through this, Vincent. You just tell me. You're the one who got Manson. Tell me about this.
Yeah.
He's passed away since then, but
yeah.
I should go back and replay that one day because it's fascinating, the amount of work.
Yeah, working through it is almost like when you finish 6 seasons of Breaking Bad or something. You just plow through it, and then you're just you're blown away. He tackles every question you have.
The lawyers are insane. He did it as from a prosecutor's point of view.
Interesting, yeah.
He treated it like a case. I'll replay that one day. That'd be years ago because I know we're at 57th Street. Chris, we got somebody lined up to come in now, right?
We have Logan Heftel, who's the archivist for the George Carlin estate. He was also part of George Carlin, The Life in Comedy.
Yes, he was part of that because it's his job to go back, archive all of George's personal recordings. Kelly Carlin gave him that gig, and it's fascinating, but let's bring him in.
I hide my face, I hide my face. Time condenses, we expand. I'll meet you with an open hand. On that day, we both will stand for Ithaca. Someday soon, we'll meet you back in Ithaca.
Logan Heftel's in studio. Logan is the archivist for the George Carlin estate. He was part of George Carlin, A Life in Comedy. His new EP, Side 1, comes out in August. It'll be available on iTunes, Spotify, and Bandcamp. And his new podcast, Chase the World, will be available on iTunes in August.
It's good to see you, dude, and thank you so much for being part of that George Carlin salute that we did.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a wonderful documentary you guys put together.
Logan has, I believe, one of the most unique jobs in the world. On the back of the album, I kind of like it when a lot of people die. This is the album that was released of George's material. There's just this cassette tape, and this is a very big part of your life, going through George's personal cassettes and figuring out what hasn't been recorded before.
Yes. When he died, he had boxes of recordings that were mostly saved to cassette. Like that particular one on the back of the record is from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. It was recorded from the soundboard just as a reference recordings. He was working on material for his HBO hour. And he saved these with notes, and he was always using material in a modular way. He would work things down till they were perfect. He'd work 90-minute shows or 80-minute shows down to his tight hour, and the remainder would go to the next special. So he never wasted anything. It was very efficient. And when Kelly gave me the boxes, she said this is a job he was doing for himself, and just figure out what's on it. So
now you would work for Kelly first, right?
I did.
You were just producing Kelly's show? Or?
Yes, I started on her podcast, Waking from the American Dream, and then she started a Sirius XM show, The Kelly Carlin Show, and I worked with her on that. And it's been a couple of years before she said, we've got all these recordings nobody's gone through, and we need someone to listen to it.
So the way that you got the job is you were there, and Kelly was already happy with the work that you were doing. This is
I can take no credit for it.
Yeah. No, I find it fascinating because, like I said, this is a very unique job to have, and I kind of thought, like, there are people who've done this with Mark Twain, that you go back and you find the letters of Mark Twain and you go through his journals and you just see if there's something there that maybe Twain would like to have put out, but he had passed away, or something that maybe even as I missed. But this is the only time I really know of anyone doing this with a comedian, and Carlin is maybe the only person you could do it to because there's so much material. No one has put out the amount of material that he put out over his life, right? There's no one that comes close, I don't believe.
I don't think so. People are approaching, but he was incredibly prolific, and he did approach things like a play. Rocco Ribisi directed his last 10 specials, and
right.
He told me it was like shooting a script. It was word for word. They didn't block anything. They would just have the opening and the close, and then they'd follow George with multi-cameras, and he would just be word for word, hit every time cue, be off stage 56:30 or whatever HBO needed.
Wow.
Yeah, they always said that he would hit that on the button, that there was certain things that Carlin had that were somewhat compulsive, which helped him.
He used his OCD to fuel his work, yes.
There's a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm OCD or I'm ADD, what can I do to cure it? But it is always smarter to use these things as if they were superpowers, if you can. Like, when people worry about people being ADD today, I'm like, look how many screens I have in front of me right now. Imagine in the future, those kids are having more, probably.
Yeah.
it might not be a bad idea to have ADD. What do I know? You know what I mean?
It's true. But what type of notes was he? What are the kinds of notes that he was making on these like cassettes?
He would comment on how a routine went or how the audience responded, and he'd take selections of "this night was better," "don't say that this way again," and in the inside of that album, we have a collage of some of his notes. You can actually read in there, and it's like, "Great audience on, a lot of people die." And he had wrote in big Sharpie on the cassette tape, "Night before 9/11."
Wow.
Set this aside. The recordings took place September 9th and 10th of 2001, and the title obviously had to be changed.
It had to be changed, and some of the material had to be
changed and reworked. Yeah. He did about 80 minutes each night, and he was preparing for that November taping in New York. It ended up being called Complaints and Grievances, and that hour had to be reworked. And this release, I kind of like it when a lot of people die, includes the material that he threw out or changed.
Right.
For Complaints and
Which
Grievances.
is fascinating when you think about it. And obviously, there's a whole, there's a separate universe where 9/11 didn't happen, and this thing was seen for what it was. You know what I mean? For the material that it was. But even now, you're going to still think about 9/11 when listening to some of this material. And one of the things, everyone always talks about how lovable George is. He was also brutal. I mean, he was swinging hard and being very judgmental over a lot of different things during his career.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Did you ever get to see George work?
I never did, and I never met him. Yeah, I met Kelly when I was in New York in 2008 working with a comedian named Taylor Negron. We were doing an off-Broadway show.
I remember Taylor. He was great.
He was wonderful. I worked with him for 7 years. We wrote and performed together as a comedy songwriting duo.
That's fantastic.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
We were at the Barrow Street Theater, and Richard Belzer brought the Carlin family to see us perform right after George had died. And we all went to dinner, and Kelly, she wrote about this in her book. At the end of dinner, she invited us to all walk to the bitter end and spread some of George's ashes around the tree that's growing out of the sidewalk there. Patrick Carlin got us stoned. We had this ritual march. It was a very surreal night.
And that was your first night meeting Kelly?
That was the first night meeting Kelly.
Which is the strangest thing.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like it's like a book or a movie. Like you have this relationship with someone who you've never met, and yet you have all this intimate, access to just his most intimate thoughts, and you don't know this person, and yet in a weird way you probably know him better than most people do.
It's got to be one of the closest relationships that you've ever had.
Certainly while I was making it, I was isolated a lot. And I spent a lot of time not talking about this, so it's good to finally talk about it.
Logan Heftel's in studio. He's the official archivist for the George Carlin estate, and his new EP, Side 1, comes out in August. It'll be available on iTunes and Spotify, and his new podcast, Chase the World, will be available on iTunes in August as well.
What do you want to do with Chase the World?
I want to talk about what's going on. I think that today we have such different foundations of information. People that are intelligent and educated come together and can't understand each other because they're not operating off of the same starting point.
Right.
I think that we're at a very critical point in this species where Stephen Hawking's saying we have 100 years left. Let's have conversations around the idea that let's think in the long term. What is this world actually going to be in 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years?
Well, we talk about George, and he didn't have high hopes for America or the species.
He did not. And there's a theatrical element to that attitude, and I think that there's a lesson to take from the approach he took. And for those of us who are in this generation and younger who need to be around on this planet longer, I think we need to take that, what he started and elevate it.
It is, when he was saying about how fucking disappointed he was in us, it was like, I remember that night going, wow, that one hurt. You know what I mean?
And it should hurt
at home.
It should hurt. There's a lot to be disappointed at. We've been given great gifts as human beings, and for a large part, we're wasting them.
Now, Logan, does anybody tell you that you sound like someone very famous?
Who's that?
Your speaking voice? I think your speaking voice, you could overdub Johnny Depp without changing your voice at all.
I'm available for hire.
Chris, what is your feeling about the future of the planet? Not even the future of America, but do we have a chance?
I think a new world order will eventually happen, where it's just like a one world government.
Well, that would be Star Trek. That's not a bad thing to happen. Like, some people look at that like it's frightening, but everybody on Star Trek accepted it and they were cool with it. What do you think?
It's so hard to say right now because everything feels so surreal right now that this already feels a bit like fiction. So, I honestly, my hopeful, side is that, the generations to come will, become advanced in a way and give a fuck about the environment enough, because that's literally the only way, our only chance of survival as a species. But, and otherwise it's the end.
But also there are so many ways that this thing ends without the environment being the problem at all. Could be a giant meteor. Could be that, we're not putting together the technology to keep ourselves safe for that. It could be a pandemic if somehow that maybe only wipe out 90% of the country, of the world. But, and the fact that there's so many nukes, they just had the president talking about with the Philippines the other day. And he's like, look, we've got nukes too. So don't worry. I got 2 things over there. I mean, I don't want to use them, but I will use them. Yeah. I have to. There's a lot of things that could kill us besides 7-Up bottles.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that when I say it already feels so surreal, it kind of already feels like we're watching a movie that's on the verge of some sort of dystopian.
Now remember, if you grew up in the 50s, which everybody went back to about, make America great again, there was something great about the 50s and that we were innocent. It was the post-war. We knew we had the bomb. We knew the Russians had the bomb. People were freaked back then. Yeah. We're less freaked today, and we have thousands of more nukes and many more countries that have it. And for some reason, it doesn't even come up on a daily basis in people's conversations.
Too distracted.
Yes.
But they found bird feathers, dinosaur feathers on vertebrae in amber. The dinosaurs were birds. So when you look at birds walking around, you just imagine if the human species faces a near extinction in a few million years, we'll be like the creatures walking around that the new dominant species is throwing breadcrumbs to.
They'll be like, yes, there was a species that, you're not going to believe this, but they wore sunglasses. I don't know how. Somehow they figured out they won't find any of the thing else that we've done.
And they'll be like, so their eyes were not adjusted to the sunlight of Earth? No.
They couldn't see radio waves?
Imagine monkeys that talked. That's what they were. They were monkeys, but they wore pants and sunglasses.
They were very self-important.
But that seems very depressing to me that everything that humans have done will have meant nothing then.
I think that you have to take that depression and move through the pain to hope or just ambition, because it is an indifferent universe and we do assign the meaning. It's a responsibility to be alive right now.
It really is. But I will say this, the way I normally deal with depression is eating, sleeping.
Eating is wonderful.
Pills, help.
Smoking,
getting on stage.
Are you back to smoking in bed, Chris?
Yes, I woke up and smoked a cigarette in my bed this morning.
In bed?
I was laying in bed.
They said it's the best thing for you. They said it's the best thing.
Ashing into a red Solo cup.
Sure, there's a little liquid in there.
Yeah. I threw out all my ashtrays when I was done with smoking.
That liquid is his own phlegm. So that's his first puffs in the morning. I don't know whether you've been around him in the morning.
That cup was bone dry.
Oh, now, the new EP that you're putting out, is it more music than comedy music? Or what
it is music.
Yeah.
It is songs that I've written over the last few years with a band and a string quartet on one song. It's produced by Marvin Etzioni, and I'm really excited about it.
Marvin is a producer.
Marvin's a producer.
Really great stuff.
He has. He's been around a lot for a lot of great projects. Counting Crows, Toad the Wet Sprocket. Yeah, he was the bassist and founder of Lone Justice.
So that's by the way, I always find that to be like a fascinating career. You start out just playing in the band, but things put you together. And then you find out a producer, they have a more interesting career than if you were in the fucking Stones for 30 years. You know what I mean?
They actually do more things.
Yeah, they do more things, and they go to stranger places, and I always think that that's cool.
That's going to be like help to have a lasting career is to have a lot of projects. I would imagine. You know what I mean? That
with talented people.
Yes. So you're kind of keeping your experiences fresh and new, but then getting better at whatever that craft is.
And no one hits you about like hanging around too long. Like they'll always do that with a band. Right? It was like, you two still doing this? But no one's like, is T-Bone Burnett still producing? You know, I mean, no one gives him any shit. And then you see like a guy like him, his career gets more interesting the older he gets, and he gets involved in more things the older he gets.
And again, that's the type of profession that like the more experiences you have, you get sharper, so people are more respectful of you, not less so.
It's the exact opposite of radio, where they have less and less for you. I think it's interesting that you listen, and I saw you at the Stand the other night.
Yes.
And you're just like, you could still put up with comedy after all your work.
I watch as much of it as I can.
Is that right?
I laugh very seldom. No, no, you were very funny the other night. I'd never seen you do stand-up before, and
I'd never really done it before the other night.
Really?
So that was fun, yeah.
That's your first time?
Yeah, I should, but what I should do is tape. I never think that way. When the way that you talk about George, and I see how much more seriously he took his thoughts and his words than I ever had, it's almost embarrassing. I never thought, and I've been doing this forever, radio, and I never thought, how can I do this better? How can I do a better job of explaining myself? I just take it as the surface of like, can't believe I'm still getting away with this shit. These guys are assholes down the hall. It still seems fake to me. Who else was on the show that night that you were there?
There was...
was Sherrod Small there that night?
I don't believe Sherrod was there. I wasn't familiar with any of the other comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll remember most of them. I'll remember you.
Thank you.
There was a couple of really great ones. I'm forgetting their names.
Chris, I want you to plug every once in a while, because that's... like helpful.
Okay, well, Logan Heftel's in studio. He's the archivist for the George Carlin estate. His new EP, Side 1, comes out in August. It'll be available on iTunes, Spotify, and Bandcamp. And Logan's new podcast, Chase the World, will be available on iTunes in August. Go to loganheftel.com for more information.
Now, do you still work with Kelly?
I do.
With her show as well? Or?
I do. Still doing the radio shows, and the George's archives are now living in Jamestown in the what will be the National Comedy Center opening next year, and I'm helping put the George Carlin exhibit together.
That is fantastic. And I remember when that project started, I was wondering if it would gain, because this is the one that was wrapped around Lucy, I think, originally. And I'm like, well, that would be cool to be able to go back, because I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Radio and TV Museum here.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that you could just get into and go back into some of this stuff. Like Albert Brooks's dad is in there, and that shit is just amazing. And some of it's probably 70 years old.
I really have to go back there because I went in high school, and I'd like to kind of experience it. But I remember it being pretty fascinating.
I remember, and you can go over and check out old Tonight shows. And one of the things I remember when I was a kid with George, he was hosting the Tonight Show the night that David Carradine came on, and David Carradine was whacked the fuck out. And this is before I knew anything about what drugs were. And it was so great. So first of all, he sits in the lotus position and he's talking with George, and things that he had written on his arm. He had just written stuff down, and it was like so funny. And at the end, George is like, goes to do the plug and just goes, here, let me see where you'll be appearing. Just kind of pulled his arm over and was reading it. But it was always great. Like, people never, because George worked so hard, you never think of him as an improv guy. But he had to be funny up front with us
of course,
all the time. And that was a piece that always stayed in my mind. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but it was one of the things that made me like, well, there was so little TV, like comedy on TV, that I remember finding out if George was doing the Tonight Show, if Rodney was doing the Tonight Show, if Rickles. It was like thrilling to me. And then if George was doing Mike Douglas and you were going to get him co-hosting for 5 days, that was like finding out that your school burnt down. It was so exciting. It was fantastic. So, do you think there's other albums left for you to do with George, or what's the...
There is going to be some unreleased concerts. He didn't leave a lot of unreleased material. He saved everything. We actually found the last shows that he ever did, and after, it was right as we had turned in this record, Kelly found the last shows he ever did, and the material that he had put aside after 9/11 was being reworked for what would have been his next special. Wow. So felt really good to put this out after that.
And he was just going to go on forever. He was going to go on.
He would have gone on forever.
I also think some of the really fascinating George stuff for people that are interested in it is the early stuff, to see what was different, but what was all these little Carlin pieces that were sprinkled. And you could do it with Pryor the same way, that these guys came in to the business not to rebel against it, but to join it, right? So you see them both going out of their way to be old school, kind of a young version of the generation that came before them. In the same way, like if you see the Beatles with their hair slicked back, right. You know what I mean? Like that's always fascinating to me, to see the Beatles being rockabillys before they had found their own sound. And it's true of George and Richard Pryor. And isn't it always interesting how those two guys as together are always in our mind? I mean, I know they knew each other, but it's not like they hung out or supported each other's projects, you know, but they were a 1-2 for us.
They both followed Lenny Bruce, and they both profited what Lenny Bruce, suffered from.
Yeah.
They profited off of the door that Lenny Bruce opened.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that Lenny made them both think, what am I doing? You know, there's no doubt. But then I think they both had been busted before, too, themselves, right?
Yeah, George actually got arrested with Lenny Bruce in Chicago in 1962. There's a great photo of him over the shoulder as the cops are taking away Lenny, and George actually got arrested on purpose to ride in the back of the...
Just to be with him.
Yeah, just to be with them. And when the cops they'd raided the place and were asking everybody for ID, and George said, "I don't believe in identification," so they throw him in the back. And he tells Lenny what he did, and Lenny goes, "What are you, a schmuck?"
But, I had Joan Rivers one time talking to me about Lenny Bruce, saying like he was the one. And she talked about him the way you would talk about a first crush. I mean, I think that there was a part of her who loved his act so much that she was in love with him. Yeah. She was like, physically, he was the most beautiful man I ever saw in my life. And I was looking at pictures, I'm like, I'm not sure, but okay. You know what I mean? I get it. But that's how much she loved comedy too. I think that era of all those guys together in Greenwich Village is one of the great untold stories of all time.
I believe that. I walked through there again the other night, and you just feel the echoes of the past and all the people unaware of what went on right there.
Right there, yeah. And I wonder if we'll look back and go like the Comedy Store, David Tell was there, Louis C.K. I don't know, what I mean?
I think it's possible. Like, right now we're in it, and sometimes it can feel like, I'm sure it could be kind of exhausting too, for a comedian to be like a comedian in the middle of a comedy boom. Right. But I do have a feeling that 10, 15, 20 years from now, that will be looked at like, a little bit of a renaissance that is happening right now.
Yeah, you may be right that people don't realize it when they're in a renaissance. It's when they look back at it. And it's really not even going to be those people. It'll be the ones who are 20 and 21 going into the place now. But if you look at what was happening in the Village, even comedically, not even getting into music, Lenny Bruce was there, Bill Cosby was there, Joan Rivers was there,
Mort
Saul, David Steinberg, Robert Klein. This was like people that changed comedy from being one, like telling jokes, to engaging the audience in a whole new way.
Yeah.
That's still not that different today. Like you could take Woody Allen was part of that scene.
Yeah.
And they weren't working together as comedians like, oh, there's 7 of us. They thought it was the dumbest thing ever to put up one comic and then another. You just didn't do it. You know?
It's kind of interesting because you're like saying how it's not that different. And then you think about how vastly different their performances were compared to, I don't know, like vaudeville or, whatever.
Well,
like before
the
that.
The Catskill guys that were right before that was kind of a Take My Wife Please.
But it's kind of a strange thing. Like, is there sometimes a thing that happens in a certain art form where like somebody cracks the code and then you don't go far off of it? Like maybe rock and roll, you crack the code and there's not too many subgenres that came after that don't sound like rock and roll. Like most rock and roll bands sound like rock and roll bands. You know what I mean? Like you can tie that. So maybe that is something that happens. You toy with this possible art form until somebody just like figures out that thing and they're like, well, they kind of got it. So we're not going to go too far from what that is.
But it's always interesting too where like if you get in at a certain point, you can't be beat. Like we just put out the Beatles got their own radio station here. They're still considered the best band of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, the Rolling Stones, about the same time. Then you get into the Who, the Kinks. I mean, it's all about the people that time. And if you're making any list of comedians, it's always going to be George and Richard Pryor, 1, 2, no matter which way you put it. You know what I mean? But those guys are always at the top.
Well, how often, usually when you're talking to comedians or during an Unmasked and the conversation comes up, who is the person for you that kind of made you?
85%, those 2 guys.
It's almost never not the 2 of them. I mean, it's usually one or the other, and most of the time both. I would say get mentioned as they made me realize this is what I wanted to do.
But what about you, Gail, when it was Yakov? When you saw Yakov smearing it?
Well, that was me. You know what I mean?
Is it because you're from Russia?
That is. That's what it is.
I know there's probably somebody out there who goes, it was Yakov. I mean, I don't know if they say that out loud. But, well, we just had some Minaj on today. And for him, it was like seeing all of a sudden that there's Indian guys been able to do that. I never thought that it was a lacking thing in our culture, like, hey, we need more Indian guys. But apparently it was. You know what I mean? Apparently there's this huge amount of people who are like, yes, because they all have broken in now, and they're all doing pretty well.
Yeah. And again, that's like something that was just untapped. It's like somebody figures it out and then went, oh, wait, there's an audience out there that we were not catering to at all.
Dude, you got to see Aziz's
Masters of None.
Yeah, man,
so great.
I watched the first 2 episodes this year. He's doing one in Italy where he's speaking Italian the whole time, and it's shot like it's an old, Fellini name whoever you need to name from.
It's like
Italy.
It's based on like Bicycle Thieves, right? Or something
kind
like
of, but yeah, I'll just say yeah, but not exactly. But based on was probably enough, but it's not like a complete parody. It's just using that as a reality.
Right.
Like if that reality still existed. And you're just like, fuck, this is great. It's better than I thought Aziz. You know what I mean? Like I thought Aziz was this adorable, funny comic, but this one TV show was like,
right.
By the way, he's also a dude that's really George type serious about comedy.
It shows in his work.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to watch him progress because I was not expecting this show to be as good as it is.
I had even heard from a bunch of people this hour. They're like, he's kind of standoffish. He's just thinking about work where we like to get food and laugh and make fun of each other's shoes and accents, and he's not doing it. But yeah, some guys are they're very serious about their comedy. He's one of them, but I'm very surprised. It almost sounds like an insult to say that you're surprised some of the brilliant shit that's going on here. And he's got Eric from Tim and Eric on that show. And I didn't fucking see that coming either. He's funny and weird as shit on this show. Great. This is a renaissance of comedy. It really is. There's a lot of really great stuff going on. Chris, we gotta start and wrap this up.
Yes, we do.
How much time we got? Why don't you give me those hand signals like people do?
I'd say 4 minutes.
Okay, 4 minutes. Well, why don't you plug now?
Logan Heftel's in the studio. Logan is the official archivist for the George Carlin Estate, and his new EP, Side 1, comes out in August. It'll be available on iTunes, Spotify, and Bandcamp. And also in August, his new podcast, Chase the World, will be released on iTunes. Go to LoganHeftel.com for more information.
Are you going to do guests on that show, or how are you going to do it?
Yes, I'm having an interview. It's an interview format. I've recorded a few already.
And what kind of guests? Are you going to go for scientists, political people, comedians? What are you doing?
All of the above. A lot of musicians, a lot of actors and comics and writers and authors. I would love scientists.
To me, like, scientists almost is the new art form. You know what I mean? Like, when those guys talk, you're like, oh, I didn't know the universe was this weird. You know what I mean? Like, really? Like, when they can explain something to you about how the universe works, you're like, well, that's as nutty as any sci-fi or fantasy that I've ever done in my life. You know what I mean?
And isn't that, like, kind of your favorite thing, too? It's like to have something that, like, explained to you that is scientific or the way the universe works, and then you're just like, well, that just changes me forever. Like, you know what I mean? It could completely shift the way you think of life or death. Or,
absolutely. Yeah. When you're going, when you get really, really small, time runs backwards, and you're like, okay, so this isn't solid. None of this.
It's not actually touching.
Nothing's touching at all, and yet everything is together. Okay. Okay. I love, too, when a scientist goes, yes, we get right up to here, then we stop understanding. You know what I mean? Like,
no clue.
Yeah. We know what happened a little bit after the Big Bang. But before, I even found out when the Big Bang wasn't an explosion, it was an expansion. And they're like, it's because everything got really big. And then big to what, though? You know what I mean? Like, what was the scale before it expanded out? Maybe whatever that was got really small and compressed, and everything little looked big. And they're like, yeah, maybe. You know? Like, they're not as, the thing that I love about a scientist is, like, they're heading for truth, but they know they'll never get to all of it. You know what I mean? They know they won't.
It's just being in love with thinking about it.
Being in love with thinking about it is a great way not to think about the other things that scare the fuck out of you. All right, that's it. Great to see you, and congratulations.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Telling you the other night that I just think you have one of the most unique, interesting jobs that I ever heard about. Really.
Thank you for having me on.
It's cool to know that you're doing all this other stuff. You're doing John Fugelsang today?
Yes, at 4.
Great. 4 o'clock, so you can go over and pick up with him there, because John likes to think about all this stuff as well, and he's a great student of comedy, so that's going to be a great time. All right, that's it for us. We'll see you again in 1974.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evening is over. We hope you all enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you all again in 1974. Good evening!